What's with all the nonsense? Hurry up and bring it on. Ling Han quickly retreated. He had no interest in fighting with Rong Huanxian. The latter had 3 lives corpse caskets, and like him couldn't be killed. Finding the black stone was the way to go. Rong Huanxian flew over and reached out with his right hand. With a clench, the demonic qi in this space actually danced rapidly, turning into a giant black hand that grabbed at Ling Han. Gagaga, you didn't expect this, right? This lord is formed from primal chaos demonic qi. Here my battle prowess can increase by at least tenfold. Where are you going to hide? Rong Huanxian laughed loudly. Not necessarily. Ling Han's figure flashed and punched out. The thunder battle armor activated, and instantly lightning surged, turning into 8 giant war elephants that welcomed the black hand. Hong! The thunder war elephants charged at the black hand, but it was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. They only shattered themselves, but couldn't slow down the black hand in the slightest. As expected, when Rong Huanxian said his battle prowess could increase tenfold here, he wasn't bragging. Die! Rong Huanxian clenched his right hand, and that black hand also clenched tightly, completely swallowing Ling Han's figure. However, Rong Huanxian immediately frowned because he felt that Ling Han had already disappeared, and this clench didn't hurt him. Sure enough, when the black hand disappeared, Ling Han also appeared, completely unscathed. Old devil, although you retreated into your turtle shell a few days ago, and I couldn't do anything to you. But if you want to hurt me, that's only the ravings of a fool, Ling Han said with a laugh. Rong Huanxian's gaze was cold, and his face was filled with anger, but he knew that Ling Han was right. Neither of them could do anything to the other. He felt displeased but didn't care too much. He already had this realization long ago in the Devil Sky Mystery Realm. Then he would settle for the next best thing, and find the primal chaos source rock, refine it for himself, then suppress Ling Han and seize the treasures on this brat. Ling Han Nyo found the big rock. Nyo one. Nyo's cheerful voice sounded, and a black rock the size of a buffalo actually ran out of the demonic qi. There were 2 small feet at the bottom. This scene was a bit strange. The main thing was that Nyo was really too small. When she hugged the rock, she could only reach her 2 small feet. Gagaga, you even specially delivered the primal chaos source rock for this lord. Thank you very much. Rong Huanxian was overjoyed, and no longer paid attention to Ling Han, instead grabbing at the black rock with his palm. Once he touched the black rock, he would transform into his original body and enter it, abandoning this human shell. When he completely refined the primal chaos source rock into his own body, and then found the other 8 suppressed remnant souls, he wouldn't have to fear even the Heaven Sword Palace of the past. This is Ling Han's, not for you. Nyo called out in dissatisfaction. Xiao, the black rock actually disappeared into thin air, and Rong Huanxian's palm instantly grabbed empty air. He hurriedly turned around, and saw that Nyo actually appeared in front of Ling Han while hugging the big rock. Teleportation. Just now, that girl actually used the teleportation technique. Rong Huanxian was a bit dumbfounded. Teleportation involved the great Tao of space, and even in his world, there were very few people that could successfully cultivate it, but a little girl from the lower realm could use it with ease. Moreover, she even teleported with such a big primal chaos source rock, which made him feel inconceivable. Moreover, he also realized why Nyo was also unafraid of the effects of the demonic qi. Nyo, good job. Ling Han laughed loudly and grabbed Nyo, ready to put the little girl into the black tower at any time. No, that's this lord's. Rong Huanxian hurriedly pounced over. Seeing the black rock close by, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. With the primal chaos source rock as a body, this was its race's dream. Touched. Azura Demon Emperor unhesitatingly pulled his divine sense out of Rong Huanxian's body and tunneled into the black rock. Oh! Chapter 419. The 4th Killing Formation? Zhu Xian'er asked in surprise. According to legends, heaven and earth have spirits that form 10 natural killing formations, Ling Han explained. The 10 great killing formations are all extremely terrifying. The 2nd killing formation to the 10th killing formation can even kill shattering void tier elites. Then what about the 1st killing formation? Zhu Xian'er couldn't help but ask. The 1st killing formation? Ling Han paused. It's also known as the God-slaying formation. Could it be that it can even kill gods? Zhu Xian'er exclaimed in shock. That's right. Ling Han nodded. The first killing formation can even obliterate gods, and is the world's first killing formation. However, the art of formations has been lost, so who set up such a killing formation now? The fourth killing formation could even kill high-level shattering void tier elites, and there were actually people who could set it up these days. Putting aside whether there was such a formation master, just the materials used to set up the formation were extremely extravagant. Then aren't we in extreme danger? Zhu Xian'er asked. Ling Han nodded and said, I don't know what force it is, actually using the fourth killing formation to besiege Million Treasure City. Are they trying to turn the entire city into a land of death? Million Treasure City is the center of wealth in the Middle State, and its value lies in the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the Alchemist Society. If everyone dies, what benefits would they gain? If it was occupying some treasured land, that could still be explained, but Million Treasure City was definitely not some holy land for cultivation, and there were no worldly treasures, so was there a need to unleash the fourth killing formation? Truly strange. Ling Han shook his head and said, we can't possibly charge through this formation. Even if a Shattering Void tier elite came, they'd have to be at least in the 9th layer of the Shattering Void tier to be qualified to charge through, or else even if a dozen came, they'd all kneel. Zhu Xian'er naturally agreed. No one knew how many Shattering Void tier elites there were in total in the vast lands, but at most a dozen or so, and even if all of them came, they might not be able to break through this killing formation. They slowly retreated, afraid that they'd trigger a reaction from this killing formation and be killed on the spot. Fortunately, although the fourth killing formation could kill Shattering Void tier elites, it didn't seem to care much about nobodies like them. The formation didn't move and there wasn't any reaction. On the other hand, it was also because they didn't go too deep. Otherwise, a killing formation was a killing formation after all, and wouldn't miss a small fish because the net was too big. They retreated from the formation's area, and Million Treasure City once again appeared in front of them. In reality, this was the entire killing formation's core. But because the Heavenly Treasures Pavilion also activated a great formation to resist, this place became a relatively safe area. Han Lin snorted coldly, and a majestic and overbearing figure appeared in front of them. Xinyuan Ziguang. He stared at Ling Han, killing intent circulating. This wasn't the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, and was even outside Million Treasure City. No one could stop him from killing people. Ling Han waved his hand and said, you guys go into the city first, I'll deal with this guy. Be careful. Zhu Xian'er was as gentle as water. Beat him up. Hu Niu waved her little fists. Beat him up. Helian Sun Shui was now leaning towards Hu Niu. Because under Lu Yutong and Li Xichan's brainwashing, she obviously wouldn't trust Zhu Xian'er, so she could only imitate Hu Niu. The 3 girls, 2 adults and 1 child, returned to the city, while Ling Han confronted Xinyuan Ziguang. Ling Han didn't dare to have any contempt. If it was a battle between equals, he was confident that he wouldn't lose to anyone. However, not only was Xinyuan Ziguang's tier much higher than his battle prowess was also extremely outstanding. In reality, he was in a weaker position. Xinyuan Ziguang didn't waste any words, and directly struck out with a palm from afar. A sea of flames spread out, sweeping wildly towards Ling Han. Ling Han used the Demon Fairy Step and charged towards his opponent. His tier was much lower than his opponent's, and it would be too foolish to pull apart the distance and exchange blows. In battle, one naturally had to display one's strong points. Using one's weak points to meet the enemy's strong points was really too unwise. Dream on. Xinyuan Ziguang sneered. He similarly used a movement technique, pulling apart the distance between him and Ling Han while launching a powerful attack, taking the complete initiative. His martial arts talent really wasn't inferior to Ling Han's, and even surpassed it in some aspects. At least 22 flashes of qi at present, he was the #1 person of the younger generation. Under the amplification of the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, it was as if there were 23 of him attacking Ling Han together, truly shocking. Ling Han calmly dealt with it. He had many trump cards: 2 Demon Birth Sword, Thunder Battle Armor, Body of Iron Sheet. Which one of them couldn't turn the tide of battle? He similarly sneered and said, since you don't dare to fight in close combat, then try this move. His figure retreated continuously, instantly pulling apart a distance of 30 meters from Xinyuan Ziguang. Previously, he had been trying to close the distance between the two of them, and this sudden retreat was naturally out of Xinyuan Ziguang's expectations, causing Xinyuan Ziguang to be slightly stifled. He didn't counterattack at the first moment, fearing that this was a trap. Once he stepped in, Ling Han also leapt in. Humph, my cultivation is higher than yours, and my origin power is denser than yours. You're even less of a match for me if you pull apart the distance, Xinyuan Ziguang said proudly. With a palm strike, 23 fire tigers appeared, pouncing towards Ling Han. It was only 30 meters, and this bit of distance couldn't exhaust origin power at all. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "You think too highly of yourself." He made a drawing motion of a bow, and instantly a speck of light appeared, immediately turning into the shape of an arrow. It shot towards Xinyuan Ziguang. Annihilating Dragon Star Arrow. As fast as flowing light. Xinyuan Ziguang was greatly shocked, and hurriedly activated his origin power to protect himself. This arrow shot into his chest. Fortunately, his origin power shield activated in time, blocking this arrow. Even so, he still let out a muffled groan, feeling so uncomfortable that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. In terms of power, he was obviously above Ling Han, but Ling Han concentrated his power on a single point, while he had to set up defenses all over his body. This obviously couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. It couldn't be helped. This arrow was too fast, and he had no idea where it would shoot at him. Left with no choice, he could only defend himself. Ling Han calmly retreated, shaking off the 23 fire tigers, and said with a smile, "You're only a..." Xinyuan Ziguang's face was filled with sullen anger. Whether in terms of tier or battle prowess, he should be able to firmly suppress Ling Han, yet he suffered a small loss under this one strike, which made him feel that his pride had been wounded. For a godlike man like him, it had always been only him who defied his tier to defeat other geniuses, so how could he be defied by someone else? He was furious, and a flame ignited on top of his head, turning into a true dragon, true phoenix, and other ancient mystical beasts, displaying an extremely special bloodline. "You're dead for sure," he declared coldly. Ling Han laughed and said, "You really know how to boast. Who didn't know how to format?" Hong! Just at this moment, the black fog actually surged, and faintly visible were actually sabers, swords, axes, and battle axes, densely interwoven with terrifying vein-like patterns, surging with a shocking cold light. Ling Han's expression changed, and he immediately ran towards the city. Xinyuan Ziguang was furious. Seeing that he had shown his might, this brat actually gave up the battle. He was just about to scold him, but when he saw the transformed black fog, he instantly felt a chill in his heart. Similarly, he exerted strength in his legs and ran towards the city gates. The fourth killing formation had been activated. Chapter 420. Ling Han only kept a small piece of the black stone, and gave the rest to small tower to use to repair itself. In an instant, the whole piece of black stone turned into dust, and the source of chaos within it had already been completely extracted by small tower. He couldn't help but think that if Azura Demon Emperor entered the Black Tower, then even if he obtained a large piece of Chaos Source rock to make his body, it would be useless. He would definitely be instantly extracted into ashes. Ling Han didn't immediately go to the crimson red chilling ice grass. He was now only in the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and had to wait until he reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. If he went there now, he would just sit and wait, which didn't suit Ling Han's personality. Thus he and Hunyo strolled in the forest. There were still a lot of spirit herbs here, and since they had the time, why not go look for them? Their harvest was not bad, but after a few days, the demonic chi had mostly dissipated. More and more people surged into this area, and Ling Han's profits also plummeted. He stroked his chin and decided not to waste time, so he carved on a tree writing Ding Ergo, "Come chase your young master." This sentence was obviously said to Ding Yuan Xian. He still wanted to use the latter to train himself, allowing him to break through to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier as soon as possible. As he walked, he carved, believing that with Ding Yuan Xian's ability, he should be able to find him. Hunyo imitated her, and also began to carve on the tree. However, even though she looked like she was carved out of jade, the words she carved were crooked and twisted, and she even proudly stuck out her little butt to carve happily, without the slightest bit of shame. Only a day passed, and as expected, Ding Yuan Xian caught up. "I have to admit, you're really daring," he said coldly, his eyes burning with fury. This youngster killed his brother, and now he actually dared to provoke him, really angering him to death. "SSO second in the world," Ling Han said with a smile. "SSO first in the world," Hu Niu said without modesty, patting her little chest. "You guys," Ding Yuan Xian roared angrily, pouncing towards Ling Han and Hu Niu. The spiritual pedestal shone, making him look like a god. Ling Han laughed heartily and raised his sword to attack. Immediately 8 streaks of sword chi shot out. When he saw this scene, Ding Yuan Xian was naturally furious. She had relied on the pressure he exerted on him to advance into the realm of 8 flashes of sword chi. When he thought of this, flames of rage blazed within him. Could it be that this kid has tasted the sweetness of success and wants to use him as a whetstone again? However, he stared at the demon birth sword. Previously, he only knew that this was an extremely high-level spirit tool, which made his heart palpitate in shock. But later on, when this sword was actually able to forcefully shake the 3 lives corpse caskets, everyone, including him, naturally knew that the demon birth sword was definitely not as simple as a 6th or 7th level spirit tool. Who is not jealous? "This sword belongs to me," he snorted coldly, his hand moving as fast as lightning. Ling Han gave it his all and launched a counterattack against Ding Yuanxin. However, the gap between the two of them was too great. Very soon, he was riddled with wounds, and even his bones could be seen. Fortunately, the indestructible Heaven Scroll was too powerful, maintaining his vitality at a shockingly exuberant state. It wasn't until he lost too much blood, and even his eyes started to blur, that Ling Han began to flee. As he ran, he took out ginseng and other tonics and consumed them madly, using the indestructible Heaven Scroll to recover. He retreated as he fought, and didn't flee in a defeated manner. "I'm only in the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and you're in the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. I'll fight you to the death, idiot." Ling Han shook his head, but took the initiative to attack. The demon birth sword unfolded, and sword chi was like a rainbow. "Just obediently be my sparring partner. Your sister." Ding Yuan Xian was extremely furious, and charged towards Ling Han in a frenzy of attacks. Previously, he was just a tiny bit away from killing Ling Han, so he was still confident in himself. As long as Ling Han's luck was just a tiny bit worse, he would definitely be able to kill the latter. Unfortunately, he was always just that tiny bit off. After battling for another 3 days, Ling Han once again entered the Black Tower in a near-death state. After drawing in a drop of indestructible true fluid, he directly fainted from exhaustion. When he woke up, he hurriedly began to cultivate again. His improvement was obvious, and he reached the middle stage of the 8th layer. What was even rarer was that he was infinitely close to death this time, allowing him to have a deeper understanding of life and death. Life and death were opposites, but the end of life was death, and the end of death was also life. It was an endless cycle, just like Tai Chi. This conformed to the great Tao, precisely Tao begets one, and one begets two. Order and chaos, life and death, light and darkness, these opposites and cycles could all be traced back to the source. However, Ling Han's current tier was too low, and he could only be touched, but couldn't comprehend at all. He placed such a touch on the path of the sword, clarifying the path he wanted to walk. Sword chi, sword ray, everyone could cultivate them, but sword heart was different. This was a kind of profound brilliance that needed one's own path. In his last life, the Sword Emperor walked the path of a ruler. With a strike of his sword, the entire heaven and earth had to prostrate before him. The setting sun saber emperor walked the path of emotionlessness, and he could even cut down the sun, the source of life, without hesitation. What was the path he wanted to walk? Chapter 421. Oh, it wasn't too early to consider this problem. He would soon advance into the spiritual pedestal tier, and after building a spiritual pedestal, he could advance into the flower blossom tier and leave the mortal body. At this step, martial artists would truly embark on the process of seeking Tao. Thus, he had to clarify his own path before the flower blossom tier. In his previous life, he chose the path of fire based on his spirit base, studying the might of flames and tracing back to the source. This path of 5 elements, thunder, and other basic elements was also the choice of most martial artists. However, the most common and widespread choice usually wasn't the strongest choice, or else Sword Emperor setting Sun Saber Emperor, and the others wouldn't have taken completely different paths. Ling Han only pursued the strongest in this life, so he obviously couldn't walk the old path, though he'd already walked it once and could reach the peak unimpeded. He wanted to change a path, a stronger path. I want to battle all opponents, and whoever stands in my way, I'll defeat them. I don't want to be a king, standing high above and being worshipped by others. This isn't what I want. What I pursue is only the strongest, the ultimate strength that defeats all opponents. The path of the strongest. Ling Han stroked his chin. The question was there such a path of martial art? I have to believe in myself. Since I have such conviction, there must be such a path. My sword can cut through everything, even spirit tools, divine tools, shattering void and immortals. Ling Han's will was firm. He was certain that his path was the path of the strongest, and his sword was the strongest sword. Now he still needed to use spirit tools, but to cultivate the strongest heart sword, he could form the strongest sword with a flick of his finger, cutting through everything. After confirming his path, Ling Han's will became more and more resolute, as if he'd obtained a new life. Rays of divine light flickered and the scene was shocking. But soon he retracted his will. It looked ordinary and unremarkable. He was moving more and more towards returning to his original state, like an exceptional treasured sword hidden in a scabbard. Only when unsheathed would it release endless rays of light, cutting through everything. I think I've touched upon the doorway to the 9th strand of sword chi. Ling Han smiled. This had determined his own path, and it had allowed him to make great progress in his Tao of the sword. Now it's time for sparring partner Ding to come out. Give me enough pressure and motivation to grind out the 9th sword chi. Ling Han exited the Black Tower, and continued to leave words of provocation. This time he was even faster. In just half a day Ding Yuanxin had caught up. You're too arrogant, Ding Yuanxin said through gritted teeth. This brat had almost been killed by him the last time, but in less than 2 days, he was alive and kicking again to pick a fight with him. He was simply not afraid of death. You're a good person, Ling Han said with a smile. And Nyo also thinks you're a good person. Hu Nyo nodded repeatedly. Ding Yuanxian was mad with fury. These two people really thought of him as a sparring partner. He had his eyes on Hu Nyo, and Ling Han had failed to kill her several times, but this little girl wouldn't be so hard to kill, right? Since Ling Han killed his younger brother, then he would also kill one of Ling Han's relatives and let him have a taste of heartache. Die! He leaped out, charging towards Hu Nyo. Your opponent is Ling Han, not Nyo. Hu Nyo used her movement technique, and instantly turned into a flash of light, disappearing. She was so fast that Ding Yuanxian could only stare dumbfounded. Fuck, this is a little monster. Ding Yuanxian was shocked. Ling Han was very freakish, but at least it was still within an acceptable range, but a little girl's speed was so fast that even he couldn't catch her. This was too exaggerated. Ding ergo you can't catch Nyo. Hu Nyo was proud of herself, and began to carve on the tree again. Ding Yuanxian almost went mad with fury. He was wondering who it was that carved his name so hard, but it turned out to be this damn girl. He charged towards Ling Han, his eyes filled with fury. Ling Han spread his hands and said, I also know that that character is a bit ugly, but you're already so old, so if it's a bit ugly, then so be it. There's no need to seduce a girl. Fuck. Ding Yuanxian went mad with fury. Hong vein-like patterns intertwined all over his body, turning into endless flames that swept towards Ling Han. Ling Han laughed loudly, raised his sword and thrust 8 flashes of sword chi crisscrossing. How terrifying was the battle prowess of 15 stars of the spiritual pedestal tier. He was immediately wounded, and a few of his bones were broken by the tremendous force. Multiple burns also appeared on his body, too horrible to look at. However, his eyes were extremely bright. The path to becoming the strongest did not mean that one would never be defeated. But no matter how many times he failed, he would always stand up, defeat strong enemies and walk towards the peak. With the support of such conviction, the 9th flash of sword chi was already on the verge of being unleashed. Ding Yuanxian was a prodigy, after all, and soon sensed the change in Ling Han. He couldn't help but be slightly shocked, feeling that Ling Han was like a caterpillar that had transformed into a chrysalis, and in the instant that it broke out of its cocoon, it could transform into a beautiful butterfly, displaying its magnificence. This kind of feeling made him extremely displeased. Could it be that he could only be a whetstone, and was unable to kill Ling Han? Ling Han was surrounded by perils. The battle prowess of 15 stars of the spiritual pedestal tier far exceeded his limit, and the result of a head-on clash was that he was hovering on the edge of death. If it wasn't for the protection of the thunder battle armor, the toughness of the body of rock cliff, and the recovery of the indestructible heaven scroll, who knew how many times he would have already died. However, countless narrow escapes from death finally transformed into firm comprehension. Xiao! 9 flashes of sword chi appeared at the same time, dazzling and stunning. Ding Yuan Xian cursed loudly. Ling Han had already tempered 2 flashes of sword chi on his body. A whole 2 flashes. One had to know that even he had only grasped 7 flashes of sword chi, but Ling Han was originally the same as him, and now he forcibly had 2 more flashes. This was a true genius comprehending Tao on the brink of life and death. Ling Han gave a thumbs up, weak but filled with fighting spirit, and said, "I now bestow you the title of gold medal sparring partner." Good clap. Hunyo started clapping her small hands at the side. Ding Yuan Xian roared at the skies. This really made him too resentful. He came to kill Ling Han and seize the latter's treasures. Who said he was a sparring partner? After roaring, he calmed down and flashed a spirit talisman. This time he really wanted to kill Ling Han at all costs. Not good, Nyo, let's run. Ling Han recognized at a glance that the spirit talisman was the barbarian bull spirit talisman, which could greatly increase a martial artist's power. He was already in a difficult situation, and against Ding Yuan Xian, who used the barbarian bull spirit talisman, his bones would probably be shattered by the wind from the palm. He came to find a sparring partner, not to throw his life away. He had already broken into a run, and Hunyo's speed was too fast, catching up in a few steps. She leaped onto Ling Han's back and said cheerfully, Gidea, run faster. Ding Yuan Xian gritted his teeth. These 2 people actually dared to play tricks in front of him. He slapped the barbarian bull spirit talisman on his body. Although this was a spirit talisman that increased power and not speed with greater power, it could still increase his speed by a bit. He was really anxious. He definitely had to kill Ling Han. Chapter 422. As expected, with the addition of the barbarian bull spiritual talisman, Ding Yuan Xian's speed didn't increase explosively, but it did increase slightly, and in a few steps, he almost caught up to Ling Han. Do you think you're the only one with a spiritual talisman? Ling Han laughed and took out the last swift cloud talisman, slapping it on his body and immediately speeding up. This swift cloud talisman had an upper limit, and the addition to the spiritual pedestal tier was only about 20%, but Ling Han was only in the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, so the addition was still about double. Instantly he pulled away from Ding Yuan Xian again. Ding Yuan Xian couldn't help but grit his teeth. He took out a trump card, and Ling Han would have a corresponding trump card to deal with it. Could he really kill this ridiculously young elite? He stopped, thought about it, and decided not to chase after Ling Han. Not only that, he would leave the north region and venture into the middle state. Otherwise, if he stayed in the north region, he might need more than 10 years to break through to the flower blossom tier. Leave. Those who could enter the prodigy role obviously didn't lack decisiveness. He immediately left the dark demon forest and didn't even return to his clan, heading straight for the middle state. Ling Han obviously didn't know Ding Yuan Xian's decision. After he recovered from his injuries, he carved words to provoke him, but after 5 days he didn't see Ding Yuan Xian appear, so he guessed that Ding Yuan Xian might have given up on killing him. That was quite decisive. Ling Han nodded. After seeing the treasures on him, Ding Yuan Xian could still leave so decisively. Ding Yuan Xian was quite a character. However, without a sparring partner, he could only train hard by himself. Thankfully, he was already in the middle stage of the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and soon, Ling Han continued to search for spirit herbs as he cultivated. After a month, He harvested 2 spirit herbs that weren't in the Black Tower, and his cultivation finally stepped into the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. You refine the heavenly luck stone now, and then use the Black Tower's power boost to maximize the effect, Small Tower reminded him. Ling Han nodded cheerfully and took out a heavenly luck stone. This was actually a stone bead. After forcefully crushing it, one could see that it was hollow inside and wrapped in a ball of liquid. A fragrant aroma assailed one's nose. Hunyo also took one, and similarly sat upright in a dignified manner. She was even more direct, tossing the heavenly luck stone into her mouth and chewing. Ka, she chewed it into pieces just like that. However, there was no change at all. It was like his body was boiling and his sea of consciousness was surging. It was like nothing had happened. Ling Han knew that the effect of the heavenly luck stone would only be unleashed when breaking through a major realm, allowing a martial artist's battle prowess to jump by 4 or 5 stars. As for how much it could increase, it would depend on how solid the realm was. Ling Han had never eaten this thing in his last life, but he did get one for his youngest disciple, Zhang Fengyu. When that brat was in the 1st layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, he only had 7 stars of battle prowess, but after breaking through to the flower blossom tier, he actually still had 6 stars of battle prowess. The higher one's cultivation level, the more difficult it was to challenge someone of a higher cultivation level. If he did not have the heavenly luck stone, Zhang Feng would at most have battle prowess of 3 battle stars after breaking through to the flower blossom tier, which showed just how awesome the heavenly luck stone was. Ling Han sighed ruefully and left the Black Tower with Hunyo, hurrying towards the place where the crimson-red chilling ice grass grew. After walking for a short while, he felt a chill on his back. He immediately stopped and said, "Old dog of the 1,000 Corpse sect, how long do you want to follow me?" Elder Nine Clouds walked out from the dense forest, his eyes filled with disbelief. He saw with his own eyes that Ling Han entered into the demonic qi. That was something that even he was extremely wary of, not daring to touch. However, not only did Ling Han walk out alive, he was also clear-headed and didn't appear to be confused by the demonic qi at all. How many treasures were hidden on this brat's body? Elder Nine Clouds' greed burned. He knew that Ling Han could hide inside the Black Tower, so he had been looking for a chance to attack when Ling Han was the most relaxed and instantly kill him. Otherwise, if he allowed Ling Han to hide inside the Black Tower again, he would have to return empty-handed. "Youngster, you've already provoked my sect. Even if I can't do anything to you, there will be more and more powerful people who will appear next time. They will take your life, seize your opportunities, and even refine you into a corpse soldier," he said through clenched teeth. He had never thought that a spiritual ocean tier junior would be so difficult to deal with. Ling Han gave an "oh" and asked curiously, "How strong?" "He, trying to trick information out of me? You're really too naive, thinking that I'm a 3-year-old child," Elder Nine Clouds said disdainfully. Ling Han took out a ginseng and said, "Be good, tell me, and I'll reward you with a ginseng." Damn it! Elder Nine Clouds was seething with anger. Did this brat think he was a dog baiting him like this? His eyes spat fire as he said, "Junior, if I don't refine you into a skinless corpse soldier, I swear I'm not human." "You speak as if you're still human," Ling Han ridiculed. "Die!" Elder Nine Clouds shouted sharply. "The only one who will die is you." With a shout, a tall and sturdy figure shot over, emitting a domineering aura. "Fist Emperor." Elder Nine Clouds' gaze sharpened, revealing a look of dread. Although the other broke through to the flower blossom tier not long ago, he formed Fist Ray and could fight against a king tier golden blood demonic ape. This battle prowess was so powerful that it made one's hair stand on end. The 1,000 Corpse sect relied on corpse soldiers, but their own battle prowess was completely insufficient. Although the other was injured after fighting against the demonic ape after so many days, not only did he recover from his injuries, his strength also improved further, advancing into the 2nd layer of the flower blossom tier, which made one exclaim in surprise that one could advance so quickly after breaking through to the flower blossom tier. The Rain Emperor was domineering, and his eyes focused on Elder Nine Clouds, revealing endless killing intent. 1,000 Corpse sect freak, kill! He raised his fist and punched. Fist Ray dazzled the world. This was a great killing weapon that surpassed Qi. It could be said that even if Ling Han formed 30 flashes of sword Qi, he wouldn't be able to fight against the weakest Fist Ray. This was a suppression in terms of quality. Of course, if Ling Han could condense 30 flashes of qi into sword ray, then he would naturally have an overwhelming advantage against the fist ray formed from 10 flashes of qi. Although Elder Nine Clouds was in the 5th layer of the Flower Blossom tier, he was no match for the Rain Emperor who formed Fist Ray. A few moves were enough to make him cry out, and he said sternly, "Fist Emperor, I don't want to be your enemy, but if you continue to be overbearing, don't blame me for being merciless." "So what? The people that I want to kill have never lived." The Rain Emperor used the Son of Heaven Fist technique, and Fist Ray shone brilliantly, astonishingly terrifying. Elder Nine Clouds howled, and a strange sound was immediately heard from afar. Very soon, an iron coffin swept over. Pong! The coffin lid shook open, and a corpse soldier leaped out. Its entire body was silver, as if it was forged from silver. "Third-tier silver-armored corpse," Ling Han said. This kind of corpse soldier had already reached the limit of a silver-armored corpse. "Gaga, that's right, this is a third-tier silver-armored corpse. After being tempered by me in every possible way, its strength has already reached the 9th layer of the Flower Blossom tier," Elder Nine Clouds said proudly. "Fist Emperor, it's not too late to leave now, your mother." That was because the Rain Emperor's fist had already struck out mightily. Chapter 423. The 4 corpse soldiers rushed forward together, blasting towards Pang Xiangming. All of them emitted a strong evil aura, as if they were demons that crawled out of hell. In a sense, that was indeed the case. Corpse soldiers and corpse qi were originally of the same origin. Now that these 4 corpse soldiers had absorbed Sita Yao's life corpse qi, their power immediately skyrocketed. Sita Yao, on the other hand, looked a bit dispirited, clearly having consumed a lot of energy. "It's just a few skeletons, what can they do to me?" Pang Xiangming sneered, and the moon-shaped mark on his forehead shone brightly. His hands danced, and the 4 corpse soldiers were once again imprisoned. "Break for me," he shouted. With a rip, he actually tore off the hands and feet of 2 corpse soldiers. What power! One had to know that after corpse soldiers were tempered, their bodies were extremely tough, constantly approaching the height of rare metals of the same tier. And how close one could get would depend on the degree of tempering and the materials added. The corpses of elites were only higher-level raw materials, and if one wanted to refine them into corpse soldiers, powerful corpse soldiers, one naturally had to pay a great price. These 4 corpse soldiers of Sita Yao definitely couldn't be considered the best among Flower Blossom tier warriors, but it was already not easy to refine them into tier 3 silver-armored corpses, yet 2 of them were instantly destroyed by Pang Xiangming, which was enough to prove Pang Xiangming's extraordinariness. "Damn it!" Sita Yao roared, and the 4 corpse soldiers pounced again. Anyway, corpse soldiers didn't feel pain, and losing their hands and feet would only slightly affect their battle prowess. He himself joined the battle, attacking Pang Xiangming together. Pang Xiangming should have won, right? Zhu Xianer asked Ling Han. Ling Han nodded and said, "If Sita Yao doesn't have any other trump cards, then Pang Xiangming's victory is assured." He'd made several judgments which already convinced many people, and they all settled their hearts. Although almost no one here knew Pang Xiangming, now that everyone was in the same boat, they all hoped that Pang Xiangming could win. Some people purely wanted to fight for their honor, while others thought that after Pang Xiangming won, there would be 10 places to leave the city, so could they get one over? At first, everyone was like a piece of iron, willing to fight to the death for survival. But when a sliver of hope appeared in front of them, many people's thoughts changed. Pang Xiangming was indeed superior. After a few dozen moves, the 4 corpse soldiers were all defeated, and he gave Sita Yao a heavy palm, but he actually didn't kill him. After a cloud of black corpse qi swirled, Sita Yao retreated into the crowd and spat out a mouthful of black blood, looking extremely weak. "Haha, 17th junior brother. Come, you're not fated with this follower." A black-robed youngster laughed loudly. He strode out and said, "I Bian Hao am the 14th disciple under sect master." Pang Xiangming looked coldly at the black-robed youngster, and said, "Get out of the way, he still owes me 3 kowtows." "Youngster, don't you want those 10 places to leave?" Bai Yuan interrupted. "No." Pang Xiangming refused without hesitation. "Fuck, are you stupid?" On top of the city wall, many people instantly cried out inwardly. "If you don't give it to me, fuck you, where did this idiot come from?" actually willing to be buried here for the sake of fighting for a bit of pride, extremely retarded. Yet Ling Han rubbed his palms together and smiled. This Peng Xiangming had quite a character, and was worth saving. He looked on coldly from the sidelines. Some people he planned to save, while some people were only fit to turn into mud here. Hee, since you're willing to give up these 10 places, it's up to you, Bai Yuan said with a smile. However, you have to kowtow if you win, that's just your wishful thinking. He didn't agree. So deceitful. But thinking more carefully, it was true that the bet of kowtowing 3 times was Peng Xiangming's one-sided statement. Si Tu Yao didn't agree. Wishful thinking couldn't be done, right? Otherwise, with so many beauties in the world, wouldn't you be able to take one home if you liked one? Peng Xiangming revealed an angry expression, but didn't flare up. Instead, he pointed coldly at Bian Hao and said, "Then I'll kill you. You don't have the right to kill me, right?" Bian Hao laughed loudly. He had the cultivation of the 4th layer of the flower blossom tier, a level higher than Si Tu Yao, but the 1,000 Corpse sect relied on corpse soldiers. The key was how many corpse soldiers he had and how strong they were. The sound of friction was heard, and 4 coffins slid over at the same time. Pung 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 pung, 4 corpse soldiers jumped out, obviously also tier 3 silver-armored corpses. Unless they had 3 lives corpse caskets, they couldn't control corpse soldiers that surpassed their own tier. This also showed how terrifying 3 lives corpse caskets were. Peng Xiangming obviously wouldn't be afraid, charging towards Bian Hao, but the 4 corpse soldiers immediately met him, waving their skeletal hands and stirring up a terrifying gale. Obviously, these 4 corpse soldiers were stronger. They probably reached 13 stars of battle prowess, Ling Han said with a nod. So powerful! Zhu Xian'er exclaimed. After a martial artist died, there was only a corpse left. Even if it had been refined, it was already quite impressive to be able to display battle prowess that matched one's own tier. And to surpass 1 star level was so high, this corpse was too extraordinary when it was alive, so it had to be refined at a great cost. No matter what, Bian Hao's 4 corpse soldiers were really strong, gradually suppressing Peng Xiangming, making him unable to attack Bian Hao again. A flower of blood actually flashed out from Peng Xiangming's waist. Bian Hao was holding a dagger, and fresh blood was still dripping from the dagger. He licked his lips, revealing a bloodthirsty ferocity. Just now, it was his successful sneak attack that gave Peng Xiangming a blow. However, under such circumstances, it couldn't be considered a sneak attack. The 1,000 corpse sex people and corpses were one, and it could only be said that the 4 corpse soldiers gave Peng Xiangming too much pressure, creating an opportunity for Bian Hao to succeed in one strike. Ha 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 ha. Bian Hao laughed loudly. You've already been poisoned by my corpse poison, and only by submitting to me can you be saved. Otherwise, you'll slowly be corroded by corpse qi, turning into a corpse soldier that only knows how to thirst for blood. Humph. Peng Xiangming ignored him, and directly flew back to the top of the city wall. He sat down, took out a pill bottle from his spatial ring, poured out a few soybean-sized medicinal pills, and swallowed them. He then began to circulate his martial arts to expel the corpse qi. Ignorant! Bian Hao sneered, and said towards the city gate, "Who else is unconvinced and wants to fight me?" He was merely the 14th disciple of the 1,000 Corpse sect master, so how could he be so arrogant? Everyone turned their gazes towards Xinyuan Ziguang. This youngster's invincible might was domineering, and had the momentum to surpass Yao Huiyu and other prodigies that had been famous for a long time. His cultivation of the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier was also the best of the young generation. If he went up, he would definitely have victory in his grasp. Xinyuan Ziguang revealed a proud expression. He originally didn't want to go down so soon. A prodigy like him obviously had to fight at the last moment to dazzle everyone. However, Million Treasures City obviously didn't have any stronger youngsters. If he still didn't go up, the other side's challenge would probably be over. He smiled faintly at Helian Sun Shui, and said, "In this battle, I'll fight for you." Chapter 424. Though Ling Han and the Rain Emperor were far apart in terms of cultivation level, Ling Han's identity as an Earth-grade alchemist was enough for them to be on equal footing. Strictly speaking, a low-level Earth-grade alchemist was still slightly more important than a flower blossom tier. The two conversed for a while, and when they learned that Ling Han was going to collect the crimson red chilling ice grass, the Rain Emperor offered to accompany Ling Han and lend him a hand. Ling Han gladly accepted. So many days had passed, and that stalk of spirit grass had become the target of many people. Though he believed that no one below the spiritual infant tier would be able to collect it, what if there were flower blossom tier warriors standing guard on the side? And if they saw him succeed and robbed it? The secret of the Black Tower was already known to a few people, and Ling Han didn't want it to be spread more widely. Thankfully, whether it was Rong Huanxian, Azura Demon Emperor, or Elder Nine Clouds, they only thought that he had a spirit tool that could accommodate living things, and didn't know that it was the Black Tower, which was far more than simply accommodating living things. This little girl is even more unfathomable. The Rain Emperor turned to Hunyeo. In the past, he could barely tell that the little girl had the cultivation of gushing spring tear, but now Hunyeo was like a ball of fog, extremely obscure. Hunyeo giggled. Since Ling Han was polite to the Rain Emperor, she gave him face as well, or else who would care? The three of them headed towards the location of the crimson red chilling ice grass. This was in the core area, so after less than half a day, the three of them arrived. However, they weren't the only ones here, there were already 3 people there. Yao Huiyu, Tong Jiming and Zhu Xian'er. These 3 obviously wanted to collect the crimson red chilling ice grass, but couldn't do it no matter what. Though they couldn't see Zhu Xian'er's face, it was definitely filled with anxiety. Discovering that Ling Han and the others had come, Yao Huiyu's eyes swept over them, and immediately shone brightly, as if turning into countless sharp swords shining brilliantly. Endless fighting spirit burst forth from his body as he stared closely at the Rain Emperor. Wang Wang Wang, the long sword at his waist actually hummed as if about to leave its sheath on its own. The Rain Emperor was the same. His whole body was exuding a powerful aura, and there were multiple surges of divine light that transformed into multiple iron fists. The two of them had clashed with each other during the battle with the demonic ape, but after the battle, they were both seriously injured. Naturally, they went to heal their wounds and digest the battle insights they had gained. This was the second time they had met, and both of them were at their peak. Their battle intent soared to the heavens. "Young man, you actually still dare to appear. Have you forgotten what my master said?" Tong Jiming smiled coldly at Ling Han. Back then, Yao Huiyu had said that the next time he met Ling Han, he would take his life. Ling Han glanced at him and said, "Whose dog is this? It only knows how to bark all day long. If you don't take care of it, I'm going to kill it." Yao Huiyu withdrew his gaze from the Rain Emperor, and calmly said to Ling Han, "If you have the ability, then go ahead and kill him." Tong Jiming sneered. He was at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and his battle prowess was 12 stars. How could a young man at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier compare to him? He was instantly shocked. The 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier was only 3 months' time. How did this guy leap from the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier? He previously praised Yao Huiyu for being at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier at the age of 17, and this young man in front of him didn't lose out at all. Could this be the second Yao Huiyu? However, so what if he was at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier? He was a whole tier away from him, and this was a gap that no talent could make up for. "I'll suppress you," he shouted. Since Yao Huiyu already allowed him to attack, he obviously wouldn't be polite. Ling Han smiled faintly. He could even deal with Ding Yuan Xian, who had 15 stars battle prowess, not to mention Tong Jiming, who was only 12 stars. Moreover, he now advanced into the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, so his battle prowess obviously increased by 1 or 2 stars. However, he didn't have time to tangle with him. He had to collect the crimson red chilling ice grass anyways, so he directly revealed his trump card. "Small Tower," he called in his mind. Hong Small Tower immediately guided the Black Tower to instill power, and his aura began to skyrocket. 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, middle stage, late stage, peak stage. He only paused for a moment and directly crossed over, stepping into the spiritual pedestal tier. Then the 1st layer, the 2nd layer, the 3rd layer, and just like that, he skyrocketed all the way, finally stopping at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. Pu Piu the Rain Emperor, Yao Huiyu, Zhu Xian'er, and Tong Jiming all stared with wide eyes, completely unable to believe the scene they witnessed. What kind of medicinal pill is this that can actually increase one's cultivation by a whole tier? The Rain Emperor and Zhu Xian'er both knew that Ling Han was an earth-grade alchemist, so it wasn't strange for him to be able to concoct a medicinal pill that could increase one's tier in a short time, but to be able to increase it by so much, that was really unheard of. Meanwhile, the corner of Tang Jiming's mouth twitched. Although he hadn't fought with Ling Han before, just from Yao Huiyu's evaluation of Ling Han, he knew that the latter's battle prowess was definitely shocking. Now, the two of them had the same tier, so how could he still play? For the sake of your master, I'll spare your life. Ling Han waved his hand, turning into a flash of sword qi that attacked. Tang Jiming hurriedly parried, but this flash of sword qi directly shook off his hands, and with a piu it slashed across his neck, leaving behind a wound that instantly spurted blood. His expression changed in shock. This was obviously Ling Han being merciful, or else he would definitely be killed in an instant. Of course, if Ling Han really wanted to kill him, Yao Huiyu definitely wouldn't sit by and watch and would make a move to save him. Yao Huiyu revealed a playful expression. Although the current Ling Han was still much weaker than him, it made his hands itch to fight. However, defeating such a weakling was of no help to the formation of his sword heart, so he forcibly suppressed it. Ling Han didn't take another look and directly walked towards the crimson-red chilling ice grass from the fire area. He already consumed a golden flower of the stone, so he didn't need to fear the fire poison. Zhu Xian'er's beautiful eyes lit up. Could it be that Ling Han had the ability to pluck the crimson-red chilling ice grass? She instantly dispelled the thought of stopping him because she couldn't pluck this spirit grass at all. However, if it fell into Ling Han's hands, then there would at least be hope. Ling Han advanced with large strides. Wang, the thunder battle armor was activated, and circles of lightning overflowed, repelling all of the flames outside. He now had the power of the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, which was enough to activate the thunder battle armor to the level of the late stage of the flower blossom tier. A freak like Yao Huiyu was obviously only in the 2nd layer of the flower blossom tier, but his battle prowess was at least 10 stars. However, battle prowess of 10 stars didn't mean that defense was also 10 stars. The might of these flames attacked in all directions, so no matter how freakish your battle prowess was, it was useless, unless his sword destroyed this place. So, in this place, Yao Huiyu's resistance was at most comparable to a normal 3rd or 4th layer flower blossom tier, or at most 5 layers of the flower blossom tier. Ling Han very quickly walked through half of the path, but when he advanced further, his speed slowed down. Cracks continuously appeared on the thunder barrier, allowing the flames to enter and strike Ling Han's body. Immediately, a charred hole appeared. However, Ling Han didn't even frown, and only continued to advance. Chapter 425. To Ling Han, there was nothing more important on this trip than obtaining the crimson-red chilling ice grass. For this spirit medicine, he could even exchange the heavenly luck stone and the primal chaos source rock. He suffered great pain, but acted as if he didn't feel it. Body of rock cliff could cut off pain. Indestructible heaven scroll fully protected his life force, and with the protection of the thunder battle armor, he was qualified to continue advancing. The Rain Emperor and Yao Huiyu both looked shocked. In terms of pure defense, Ling Han was already above them. However, in battle, defense was dynamic because powerful offense also belonged to defense, forcing the opponent to be unable to attack. So what if one's defense was weaker? They were shocked by the battle armor on Ling Han's body. It was too shocking, actually being able to increase the static defense close to the peak stage of the flower blossom tier, protecting Ling Han from all directions. But for some reason, they felt that this battle armor seemed to have some flaws. This was because the thunder battle armor had a hole blasted through, which was why there was a faint feeling of disharmony. It was fine in lower tiers, but the higher the tier, the more this flaw would be magnified. After all, it wasn't a perfect and flawless level 10 spirit tool. Zhu Xian'er's beautiful eyes lit up. She hoped very much that Ling Han could harvest it successfully. As long as he did, there would be room for negotiation. Ling Han didn't care what others thought. He strode forward, trying to use this chance to harvest the crimson-red chilling ice grass as much as possible. Otherwise, he could only wait until he advanced into the spiritual pedestal tier, and use Black Tower's power boost again. However, he still wanted to suppress his tier and completely perfect this tier later, not planning to break through quickly. Thus, if he could use this power boost to obtain the crimson-red chilling ice grass, that would naturally be the best. Moreover, such a test was also an opportunity for him. 4 meters, 3 meters, 2 meters, 1 meter of spirit grass was within his reach. Yet Ling Han revealed a pained expression. The might of these flames was too terrifying. Even though he had cut off his sense of pain, he was still unable to completely avoid it, because it was as if his divine sense had been set on fire, making him feel extremely uncomfortable. He had to quickly. Ling Han took another step forward, and finally arrived at the side of the spirit grass. However, he didn't pull out the spirit grass. Instead, he unsheathed the demon birth sword, intending to dig out this spirit grass. As long as they could be taken into the Black Tower alive, then no matter what kind of environment they needed, they would be able to grow in the Black Tower. Moreover, they would be able to grow even better, and one day would be equivalent to 3 years. This was a Tier 7 spirit medicine. Ling Han naturally did not plan on using it just once. Chong, the sword struck the white stone below, and instantly innumerable sparks flew, leaving behind a shallow mark. However, the tip of the sword condensed into a layer of white frost, and a chill rapidly spread from the blade of the sword, causing Ling Han to shiver. It was as if all the blood in his body was about to freeze. He planned to slice this rock in half and store it in the Black Tower together. The tip of the sword naturally extended into the cold ground, attracting the invasion of cold air. And the strange thing was that even though the other half of the sword was in the land of fire, it didn't cancel out the cold air, but rather coexisted harmoniously. After a wave of cold air came a wave of scorching heat, causing Ling Han's blood that had just frozen to instantly boil again. He was so uncomfortable that he immediately spat out blood. Fuck, this was the authentic combination of ice and fire. Ling Han gritted his teeth, but had no intention of stopping. Ding 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 ding, he used the demon birth sword as a machete, continuously chopping at the rock. Thankfully, this was a Tier 10 spirit tool. If it were of a lower grade, randomly chopping in such a place where the cold and heat intersected, it would definitely destroy the toughness of the material, and it would shatter after a few hits. But even so, because Ling Han's strength was still a major weakness, he did not make much progress in his slashing. Moreover, his left hand, left foot, and right foot were already charred, and the aroma of roasted meat wafted from them. His right hand was still in good condition because he activated the indestructible heaven scroll to heal it with all his might, giving up on the other unimportant parts. Hunyo was very anxious, jumping up and down, but she was also very wary of this land of cold and heat, and didn't dare to rush in rashly. Moreover, Ling Han could still stand, and was still brandishing his sword, so it wasn't the worst time yet. If Ling Han collapsed, she would definitely dash over and drag Ling Han out with all her might. When both his legs were about to be burnt off, Ling Han didn't hesitate to use the indestructible true fluid. There were a total of 3 drops which could allow him to fully recover 3 times. Wang, a majestic life essence overflowed within his body, and his injuries were instantly healed. Ding ding ding, Ling Han chopped with even more vigor. However, when the essence of the indestructible true fluid was used up, his arms and legs began to show burn marks again. Yao Huiyu and the others were dumbfounded. Just now, such heavy injuries could be instantly healed. What kind of shocking healing panacea was this? If they could obtain one, wouldn't it be equivalent to having an extra life? Yao Huiyu still didn't know Ling Han's identity, while Zhu Xian'er and the Rain Emperor nodded internally. As expected of an Earth-grade alchemist, awesome. If Lu Jitong and the other Earth-grade alchemists knew, they would definitely burst into tears, because how could there be such an awesome Earth-grade medicinal pill in this world? Only the legendary Panacea 9 Divine Pill had such effects, but that was a heaven-grade mid-level medicinal pill, and no one in this world could refine it. Ling Han chopped ding ding ding. The sounds of chopping rang out incessantly, causing Yao Huiyu and the others to be puzzled. Why didn't he just pull out the grass and leave, and insisted on chopping the rock? Could it be that he wanted to catch it alive and continue raising it? Did he have such conditions? They really guessed correctly, but they definitely wouldn't have thought that there would be a treasure like the Black Tower. Ling Han very quickly used up the second drop of indestructible true fluid, but this time the speed of recovery was obviously slower, and the medicinal effects disappeared even faster. Even if it was such a divine item, it also had a resistance to medicinal effects. True, A drop of indestructible true fluid could practically revive a dead person, and the body would recover to a completely unscathed state. If there weren't some restrictions, then it would actually be illogical. When the effects of the second drop of indestructible true fluid completely disappeared, Ling Han had also shaved off about 2/3 of the white rock. He couldn't help but sigh. If he could grasp Sword Ray now, then use 10,000 techniques return to one, perhaps he would be able to chop off this rock with a single strike. Now there was no other way, and he could only continuously circulate the 4 seasons sword technique. If he used the mysterious 3,000, Yao Huiyu would definitely come out, and even the old monsters of the Heaven Sword sect might come out to interrogate him about how he had learned sword techniques. At that time, even if he could fabricate some excuses, would the Heaven Sword sect spare an outsider who had learned their sect's sword techniques? Thus, before his strength was sufficient, Ling Han didn't want the Heaven Sword sect to know that he had learned the 3 styles of black origin. Chop, 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 chop. In a short while, Ling Han was forced to use up the last drop of indestructible true fluid, and at this moment the white rock was also about to be chopped off. It was as if Ling Han had gone mad. Now there was no more indestructible true fluid to extend his life, so he had to chop off the white rock before he collapsed. Chapter 426. Ling Han's hands and feet once again appeared scorched black, but the white rock only had a sliver left. He gave a long howl and slashed with his sword. Pung! The rock finally broke. He pressed with his hand, communicating with the black tower. Xiao, the broken rock and the crimson-red chilling ice grass were stored inside. Retreat! He dodged hurriedly, and left the area of flames in a few steps. He quickly took out a large handful of medicinal pills and swallowed them madly, circulating the indestructible heaven scroll to heal himself. It's all cooked. Hunyo ran over and said with heartache, but sniffed with her little nose and saliva flowed out. So fragrant! The corner of Ling Han's mouth twitched. Would this little girl pounce and bite him? Grandmaster Ling, please give me the crimson-red chilling ice grass. No matter how many origin crystals, I can give it to you, Zhu Xian'er immediately said. Grandmaster Ling. Yao Huiyu revealed a playful smile. Is he an alchemist? Earth-grade low-level alchemist, the Rain Emperor answered. This time, Yao Huiyu finally revealed a surprised expression. He estimated that Ling Han was at most a black-grade middle-level alchemist, high-level at most. He didn't think that he was actually an earth-grade alchemist. Don't just be earth-grade low-level, but stepping into earth-grade was like a martial artist stepping into the flower blossom tier. It was a completely different level. A youth not even 18 years old, an earth-grade low-level alchemist. Yao Huiyu's talent in martial arts was indeed worthy of a thumbs up in the vast lands, but if Ling Han's achievements in alchemy were to be compared, he would not lose to him at all, and might even surpass him greatly. When he was at this age, he was only in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, which was only comparable to a black-grade middle-level alchemist. But Ling Han also reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier in martial art. What a terrifying youth. No wonder he had a feeling that Ling Han would be a great enemy in the future. Ling Han ignored him and continued to circulate the indestructible heaven scroll. The medicinal effects of the medicinal pills also continued to take effect, allowing his body to recover quickly. As long as there was no burning fire to continue attacking, the indestructible heaven scroll could unleash its strongest effect. After more than 10 minutes he stood up. Although his injuries were not completely healed, they were more or less healed. Ling Han, hand over the crimson-red chilling ice grass to Xian'er, and I can spare your life, Yao Huiyu said calmly. He had once said that the next time he saw Ling Han, he would take Ling Han's life. The Rain Emperor immediately humphed and said, I was just about to battle with you. He decisively accepted the battle on behalf of Ling Han. Yet Ling Han smiled and said, Your Imperial Majesty, leave this battle to me. There was still half an hour left before the Black Tower's power boost, so how could he waste it? Ha ha ha, Yao Huiyu laughed loudly, but as he laughed he shook his head. Although I am very fond of your potential, the current you is not enough. You do not have the qualifications to fight against me. We'll only know after we fight. Ling Han waved the demon birth sword, and vein-like patterns appeared, circulating with a frightening pressure. This kind of pressure had a strong suppressive effect on those below the flower blossom tier, But for elites from the flower blossom tier onwards, the effect was sharply reduced. After all, from this tier onwards, martial artists would have crossed over the boundaries of mortals. Yao Huiyu humphed and said, "At first, I was very much looking forward to you challenging me in the future. But if you insist on seeking your own death, I don't mind fulfilling your wish." He was a person who killed without any scruples in the first place, and did not have any fondness for talent. He had only set a 2-year agreement with Ling Han on a whim, so he naturally did not mind killing Ling Han in the slightest. "Young Master Yao, Grandmaster Ling is an Earth-grade alchemist," Zhu Xian'er reminded coldly. Although she wanted the crimson-red chilling ice grass, she did not want Ling Han's life at all. Moreover, the two of them would head to the Middle State to battle together in a year's time. They were allies, so how could she sit back and watch? Yao Huiyu smiled evilly. Others were afraid of the Alchemist Society, but why would he be afraid? Ancient sects like the Heaven Sword sect were powerful beyond anyone's imagination, and even the Alchemist Society would not be willing to provoke them. So what if he killed Ling Han? Would the Alchemist Society dare to come to the Heaven Sword sect to demand for him? "If you can block 3 strikes from me, I'll let you live," he said menacingly. Don't think that he was soft-hearted. Flower blossom tier cultivators could absolutely crush spiritual pedestal tier cultivators. So wasn't 3 strikes enough to kill? Ling Han raised the demon birth sword horizontally, and said indifferently, "You can't kill me." This was the truth. He was now in the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and at least before the Black Tower's power boost ended, he could activate the Thunder Battle Armor and have the peak defense of the Flower Blossom tier. As for the Black Tower's power boost ending, it was naturally to call for the Rain Emperor to take his place. He was definitely not someone who cared about face. First strike. Yao Huiyu attacked, very casually waving his fingers and shooting out 5 flashes of sword chi. But who was he? Not only was he in the Flower Blossom tier, he also claimed to be the second sword in the world. Though it was a bit exaggerated, his strength was unreasonably strong in the Flower Blossom tier. These 5 flashes of sword chi were like angry dragons that could easily kill a 9th layer spiritual pedestal tier cultivator over 100 times. The difference between the spiritual pedestal tier and the Flower Blossom tier was like that of heaven and earth in the first place, not to mention a monster like Yao Huiyu. Ling Han was unafraid, and waved his sword to meet the attack. Pew 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 pew, he could not cut through Yao Huiyu's sword chi, but the thunder barrier easily blocked the 5 flashes of sword chi, and even Ling Han's figure was not forced to retreat. Somewhat interesting. Yao Huiyu revealed a smile. Previously, he had seen the Thunder Battle Armor's ability to resist fire, but being able to resist fire and being able to resist physical attacks were 2 completely different things. For example, a wall of earth could resist fire, but when it encountered the attack of a metal hammer, it would definitely be broken in an instant. After this attack, Yao Huiyu's hope of getting lucky was gone. The Thunder Battle Armor was not only able to defend against attacks like ice, fire, and poison, but also had an effect on physical attacks. It was time to get serious. Yao Huiyu drew his sword, his expression solemn. For a proud person like him, if he said he would use 3 strikes, then he definitely would not use the 4th strike. Otherwise, it would ruin his heart of sword arts, and he would never be able to cultivate sword heart in this lifetime. He waved his hand again and 9 flashes of sword chi shot out simultaneously, blasting towards Ling Han. Bam! These sword chi were once again perfectly dispersed by the Thunder Battle Armor. What effect could a normal attack have against the defense of a peak stage Flower Blossom tier elite? Yao Huiyu's expression became even more solemn. He did not have the slightest intention of underestimating Ling Han, but the strength of his opponent's armor was beyond his imagination. He had to use his ultimate move, or else he wouldn't be able to get rid of this young opponent. He took a deep breath and his treasured sword trembled slightly. His entire person emitted an endless amount of sword chi, as if he had also transformed into a sword. His body was a sword, his spirit was a sword, everything was a sword. Ling Han was greatly moved. In his previous life, he had naturally never seen the Sword Emperor use his full strength, and when Yao Huiyu used his full strength, it immediately gave him an inspiration. So the path of the sword could still be walked in this way. If he wanted to walk the path of the strongest, he would have to absorb the strong points of hundreds of schools. 3,000 mysterious mysteries, cleave 3,000 realms. Yao Huiyu struck out with his sword. Xiao, there were actually 1,200 rays of sword light that shone together. Ling Han revealed a smile. It was indeed the mysterious 3,000. His gamble paid off. Chapter 427. Ling Han crooked his finger and said, "Come. As you wish." Tian Xiaoning gave a long howl, controlling the 5 corpse soldiers to attack Ling Han. And when the 5 corpse soldiers pounced towards Ling Han, completely covering his figure, everyone began to shake their heads. This young man was obviously dead for sure. This wasn't the first person to die today, and it wouldn't be the last, so everyone didn't take it to heart. Who would care about an unknown person? However, the next scene made everyone's jaws drop. Ling Han's figure was actually extremely slippery, moving freely under the siege of 5 corpse soldiers. If he really couldn't dodge, he used his hand to block, and with a flash of golden light, the attacking corpse soldier was shaken back. How is this possible? Isn't this guy only at the 2nd layer of the flower blossom tier? How can his strength be so terrifying? Those corpse soldiers have about 14 stars battle prowess, right? Definitely 14 stars, but this kid can block them with a casual wave of his hand. This strength is too terrifying. Genius and absolute genius. He's definitely not inferior to Xinyuan Ziguang and Yao Huiyu. The face of the veteran from before twitched. In a short while, 3 super geniuses ran out and ruthlessly slapped his face, wishing that there was a big hole in the ground for him to crawl into. He has some strength, Tian Xiaoning said with a sneer, joining the battle as well. The weapon he used was a bone sword, and its shape was probably taken from the leg bone of a giant beast and then polished. There were vein-like patterns on it, and it was definitely formed naturally. Once activated, the vein-like patterns shone and linked up one after another, releasing a shocking grand light. Ling Han seemed to see a giant beast floating on the sword's blade, and that terrifying body seemed to be able to crush heaven and earth. His eyes involuntarily lit up, and he said, "This was refined from the leg bone of a Wuxia, right?" In the legends, the true dragon had 9 sons, but each one was different, because they were all born from the true dragon and different beasts. The offspring only inherited a portion of the true dragon's bloodline, and the Wuxia was one of them. It was shaped like a fish but not a fish, and its head was like a lion's, but it had a pair of horns, and its entire body was covered in dragon scales. Even if it only had a sliver of the true dragon's bloodline, all the beasts in the world regarded the true dragon as their leader, which showed how high its status was. Having a sliver of the true dragon's bloodline was extremely impressive, and hard to find in the world. Tian Xiaoning revealed a surprised expression, and said, "You actually recognize this sword." He also only knew about the legend of the Wuxia after being bestowed the sword. However, this Wuxia's bloodline was even thinner, or else it was a dragon's descendant, so how could it be so easily killed and its leg bone extracted to make a sword? Thin bloodline, mixed vein-like patterns, nothing more than this. Ling Han gave another evaluation. Tian Xiaoning's nose instantly became crooked in anger. "You looked shocked at first and now you said nothing more than this. How could he accept this?" He snorted coldly and said, "It's more than enough to kill you." He brandished the sword and slashed towards Ling Han. This bone sword was extracted from the leg bone of a divine beast's descendant and refined with various treasured materials, and could be considered outstanding among level 6 spirit tools. With this slash, a gigantic shadow of a ferocious beast immediately appeared, pouncing towards Ling Han. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "This sword isn't bad, I'll take it." The demon birth sword couldn't be casually unleashed, so temporarily using this sword as a replacement wasn't bad either. Impudent. Tian Xiaoning was furious. This brat was too arrogant, actually treating him as nothing. Ling Han used the demon fairy step and directly arrived in front of Tian Xiaoning, both fists blasting out continuously. The 5 corpse soldiers actually became decorations, and amidst angry roars and strange cries, they charged back, chasing behind Ling Han's butt. This time, it became a head-on confrontation between Tian Xiaoning and Ling Han. He, however, wasn't afraid. With a wave of his sword, 9 flashes of sword chi were formed, and under the support of the bone sword, Each sword qi transformed into a terrifying 9-meter-long waterfall, slashing towards Ling Han. Ling Han obviously wouldn't be afraid, and directly brandished his fists to meet it. Pung 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 pung, these sword qi were instantly shattered. Seeing this scene, everyone held their heads and cried out in shock. This was too inconceivable. One had to know that those 9 flashes of sword qi were all triggered by the bone sword, and their sharpness was equivalent to that of a bone sword. This was also the reason why everyone pursued a good spirit tool. However, Ling Han shattered these sword qi with a punch, and his fist actually didn't suffer the slightest injury. Was that still a body of flesh and blood? No need to doubt, this is because my fist is harder, Ling Han said with a smile. He cultivated the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, and if he really cultivated the body of diamond, his physique would definitely be even more tyrannical than a true dragon's. Although he now had the body of iron sheet, the bone sword was only refined from a gloomy viper's descendant, not even the son of a divine beast, so how could it possibly injure him? To threaten his 6th-tier body of iron sheet, it had to use a 7th-tier spirit tool no matter what. As he spoke, Ling Han's fist struck continuously, forcing Tian Xiaoning to retreat. This was very interesting. Tian Xiaoning retreated, Ling Han chased, and behind him were 5 corpse soldiers, forcibly turning what should have been a group brawl into a one-on-one chase. Haha! This youngster discovered the corpse soldier's biggest weakness. Someone on the city wall clapped and laughed. That's right, the corpse soldier's weakness is that their speed isn't fast enough. After all, they're just remains and can't use movement techniques. But just the explosive power of their bodies is equivalent to the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier, and there aren't many that can surpass them in speed. This youngster's movement technique is truly extraordinary. Many things could actually be seen through with a hint, but even if it was seen through, not everyone might be able to do it. This was what it meant to be easy for a person to carry a burden, but if one had to go up himself, he might only be able to groan. Tian Xiaoning was shocked. In this way, the 5 corpse soldiers were useless, and he became the one facing Ling Han alone. However, the majority of the 1,000 corpse sex battle prowess came from the corpse soldiers, and if the corpse soldiers couldn't play a role, their own strength would naturally be greatly reduced. He was actually quite extraordinary, having the cultivation of the 8th layer of the flower blossom tier and battle prowess reaching 15 stars, which was enough to look down on his peers, but encountering a freak like Ling Han, he could only be miserable. Ancient bone patterns condensed on Ling Han's fists. Close combat was now his forte, and the power of a body cultivator burst forth, not much weaker than origin power. Each punch was like a pile driver. Only a body cultivator could bombard so fast. Origin power cultivators' physical strength couldn't keep up, so they could only work on qi, replacing speed with quantity. Pung 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 pung. After more than 100 punches in a row, Tian Xiaoning's bone sword instantly flew out of his hand, and Ling Han reached out and grabbed it. Give it back. Tian Xiaoning hurriedly shouted. This was a treasure personally bestowed to him by the Lord Sect Master. Ling Han shook his head and said, in your hands, this spirit tool has really fallen into disgrace. He turned around and stared at the 5 corpse soldiers that pounced at him. Chapter 428. Zhu Xian'er, 13th on the North Region's prodigy roll, and in a little over a month's time when the ranking battles would be held, it was a sure thing for her to advance into the top 3, and even the first place wasn't impossible. Moreover, she was the North Region's first beauty, and even before her face was completely revealed, the Heaven Sword Sect's outstanding disciple was at her beck and call, attentively fawning over her. What kind of charm was this? But now, she was actually despised by someone, and even reprimanded as a little girl. Zhu Xian'er was really very displeased. If Ling Han was a 50 or 60-year-old man, then she would accept it. But this guy was clearly 3 or 4 years younger than her. Yet he acted like an old man, so how could she not explode with anger? Most importantly, Ling Han's impatient expression was so natural, and he wasn't playing hard to get at all. This was practically stabbing a dozen knives into Zhu Xian'er's usually confident heart. In this instant, she had an impulse to take off her veil, and when Ling Han saw her unparalleled beauty, he would have to bow down to her. But firstly, she was never willing to use her beauty, and secondly, she was more afraid that Ling Han would be interested in her, and used the crimson red chilling ice grass or his identity as an earth-grade alchemist to force her to submit. Thus, she gritted her teeth and endured this impulse. Master Ling, you're only 17 or 18 years old. If Xian'er is a little girl, then what are you? She countered. Silly girl, whether a person is mature or not depends on their mental age, not what they look like. Hearing you say that, I know really a silly girl. Ling Han shrugged and turned to leave. Hunyou made a face at Zhu Xian'er, and then caught up to Ling Han, tugging on the corner of Ling Han's clothes, giggling. Damn. Zhu Xian'er was driven mad. How could there be such an infuriating man? She was really too annoyed, and also wanted to smash something, okay? Ling Han was very satisfied. This trip to the Dark Demon Forest was practically perfect. Not only did he reap great rewards, he had also schemed against the Azura Demon Emperor and gotten rid of a great threat. He had also met the Rain Emperor again. This domineering emperor had already started his own path to becoming a ruler, and his future accomplishments were limitless. He brought the Tiger Clan back to Extreme Yang City. If Lan had already obtained the 9-leaf black Ganoderma for him, then he would be able to refine the restorative spirit pill. Zhu Xian'er actually caught up and walked side by side with Ling Han. This made Hunyou extremely displeased, feeling that this woman who swayed her but while walking was really too annoying. Why did she always come to tempt her? Ling Han? Ling Han had long since planted the crimson red chilling ice grass. This stock of spiritual medicine actually had not reached a sufficient age yet, but it would be enough if it was planted in the Black Tower for another 10 days or so. Thus, when Ling Han returned to Extreme Yang City, this stock of spiritual medicine had already completely grown and bore a mere 3 fruits, but the main stem was rapidly withering, as if all of its vitality had been injected into the fruits. The fruits couldn't be used as medicine. The value of the crimson red chilling ice grass lay in its stem, but the 3 fruits meant that in another month or so, Ling Han would be able to harvest 3 stalks of 100-year-old crimson red chilling ice grass. At that time he would use 1 stalk, sell another to Zhu Xian'er, and continue to plant the last stalk. In the future, he would no longer lack this kind of spiritual medicine. He returned to the inn, but saw that Lu Yutong and the others had already moved away long ago, but they had the waiter leave an address for Ling Han. Naturally, Lu Yutong and Li Xichan had already made their decision and finally found a new home. When they arrived at Extreme Yang City, Zhu Xian'er also left swiftly, while Ling Han went to his new home. This was on the eastern side of the city. From the outside it looked very ordinary, but there was actually a sizable lake inside. The willows hung upside down, and the scenery was delightful. There were pavilions, terraces, and stone bridges, creating an artistic conception of tranquility amidst the noise. They actually hired guards at the entrance to block Ling Han, making Hunyou reveal her ferocious side and almost bite him. Fortunately, Zhu Wujiu just happened to come out and hurriedly invited Ling Han into the manor, informing the guards that this was the true master of the Ling Manor. Some servants were also hired in the manor. After all, this manor was very large, and Lu Yutong and the others were busy with their own matters, mainly cultivating and concocting pills, so where would they have the time to deal with trifling matters? Very soon, Lu Yutong and the others all came out to greet him. Ling Han roughly understood the situation. Whether it was Forget Not or the Alchemist King Pavilion, because of Lu Jitong's protection, naturally no one dared to have any ideas. However, because Ling Han had left for too long, the ingredients in Forget Not were almost used up. From last month onwards they adopted a method of limited supply, or else there wouldn't be any ingredients to sell now. The same was true for the Alchemist King Pavilion. The high-level medicinal pills refined by Ling Han were basically sold out, and although Li Xichan was rather talented in alchemy, she was far from the alchemy emperor. Fortunately, Ling Han finally returned. Business matters obviously had to be handled in a hurry. Ling Han took out a large amount of vegetables and fruits from the Black Tower, as well as some live animals, and had Zhu Wujiu send them to Forget Not. As for medicinal pills, he'd refine them in the Black Tower when he had time. After all, it took time and not like ingredients that could be taken out. When it was time for lunch, Gong Letian came uninvited. He was addicted to eating Forget Not's good food, but after the limited supply, he could only eat 1 precious dish per meal. How could his picky mouth bear it? Thus, he would come here every day to freeload for food, because Lu Yutong and the others were naturally picky, and had to eat the ingredients in the Black Tower for every meal. When Ling Han returned, this guy immediately pounced over and cried out, "Brother, you're finally back. I've been waiting for your meat for so long that I'm dying." Ling Han's face couldn't help but darken. This guy didn't know how to speak, wanting to eat his meat. Today Ling Han returned, so everyone obviously didn't have to be stingy anymore. All kinds of precious dishes were served, and they fiercely had a sumptuous meal, making everyone's little stomachs round. After Gong Letian left, Ling Han gathered everyone together. "This is the heavenly luck stone," Ling Han said, and explained its specific uses. This shocked everyone. As long as they refined this small stone, when they broke through in the future, they'd have 4 or 5 stars of battle prowess. This was really too shocking. How could there be such a precious treasure in the world? They were all people of Rain Country, and limited by their experience, they obviously couldn't have heard of such a treasure. Everyone was extremely excited. Even Flower Blossom tier and Spiritual Infant tier elites would make a move to snatch such a treasure to increase the power of their juniors, but Ling Han actually obtained as many as 9 of them, which was really shocking. With gratitude, they all took the heavenly luck stone. As long as one broke through in the major tier, battle prowess would soar. This could be seen on Lu Yutong and Zhu Wujiu the earliest, because they were both in the 9th layer of the Gushing Spring tier and had already consolidated their tier to near perfection, ready to break through. Qin Yi was much slower. He just stepped into the 2nd layer of the Spiritual Ocean tier, and there was still a long way to go before he reached the Spiritual Pedestal tier. Guang Yuan was even more miserable. After recultivating, he indeed progressed faster than Qin Yi, but his tier dropped, and entering the Spiritual Pedestal tier was only recovering, not breaking through. Thus, the benefits of the Heavenly Luck Stone could only be seen when he reached the Flower Blossom tier. Li Sichan, on the other hand, refused to take the Heavenly Luck Stone no matter what. For her it was a huge waste. She only needed to increase her tier and be able to concoct alchemical pills. The ability to battle above her tier was really useless. Chapter 429. Ling Han did not force her. It was indeed a waste to let Li Sichan refine the Heavenly Luck Stone. Since she did not need it, then he would leave it. Anyway, such a treasure could be sold for a sky-high price at any time. He went to the Spirit Treasures Pavilion again to ask about the 9-leaf black Ganoderma. The results made him overjoyed. Yin Hong already had news of the spirit medicine, and she might be able to obtain it in a month or 2. Could not be helped. Level 7 spirit medicines were very precious. Yin Hong was only the beloved daughter of the pavilion master of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, and the resources she had were limited. Most importantly, being a pavilion master did not mean that he could cover the sky with one hand. After all, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion was a very, very large force. It was just 1 or 2 more months. Ling Han could still afford to wait. Moreover, in another month, the North Region Prodigy ranking would open. Although Ling Han had no interest in participating, it did not matter. What level had the prodigies reached now? Oh right, what other formations are there? I can use cultivation methods and martial techniques to exchange for them, Ling Han said. Yin Hong rolled her eyes and said, "Don't talk to me like you're talking to a child." All right. Ling Han swiped his right hand, and 10 martial techniques immediately appeared on the table. They were all Earth-grade books. Yin Hong flipped through them and could not help but reveal a shocked expression. "Where did you steal so many martial techniques? You don't have to worry about that. Do you want to exchange or not?" Ling Han said with a smile. Yin Hong could not help but be tempted, but said, "Didn't I give you the little Tianyuan spirit snake formation? I learned it," Ling Han said very casually. Yin Hong immediately spat out a mouthful of tea. What kind of joke did he learn? That was a level 4 formation and he learned it in a few months. Formation Dao could not be accomplished in one go. One had to first learn level 1 formation patterns, then move on to level 2, level 3, and level 4. Normally, one could learn level 1 formation patterns in a month or 2, but level 2 would take at least 1 or 2 years, level 3 would take 4 to 5 years, and level 4 would take at least 10 years. It was easy in the beginning but slower in the later stages. Therefore, Array Dao was only used as a support. No one cultivated Array Dao alone. Yin Hong was also considered a genius in formations, But she also spent 3 months to master the little Tianyuan spirit snake formation, and this was under the condition that she had already mastered a large number of 4th-tier formation patterns. Boasting. She didn't believe it. Ling Han smiled and waved his right hand again. 7 purple gold rods appeared, and the little Tianyuan spirit snake array appeared in his sea of consciousness. Suddenly the power of heaven and earth surged, and a white snake suddenly appeared. What? Yin Hong stood up abruptly, her beautiful eyes wide open. You are practically a monster. Hey, we are familiar with each other, but if you curse at me like this, I will get angry, said Ling Han with a smile. Yin Hong was still dumbfounded, and said, I thought I was a genius in formations, but compared to you I seem to be an idiot. Indeed I am a genius. Ling Han nodded. Yin Hong couldn't help but sigh. Can't you be a little more humble? This is the truth. If I were humble, then I would be pretentious, and pretentious is something only cheap people do, said Ling Han in all seriousness. Yin Hong immediately laughed loudly, and laughed so hard that she was shaking. She wasn't afraid that Ling Han would be aroused, and he even pushed her with his lust. After a while, she said with a serious expression, with your standards and formations, you might even be better than me in a year, and you can be the main leader in the formation competition. Then I will have to pay more. Ling Han said with a serious expression. Yin Hong rolled her eyes charmingly and said, just a few words of praise and you're already panting. However, no matter if it's formations, alchemy, or martial arts, each domain can send out 3 people, and the one with the best results will be counted. The higher your attainments in the array Dao, the higher the points we can obtain in the array Dao. Alright, I will change it for you. She took out an ancient book and placed it in front of Ling Han. Tiandu Thunderstar Array. Ling Han glanced at the 5 words written on the cover. 5th level formation, Yin Hong said with a serious expression. However, this is also the highest level formation I can obtain. As for 6th level formations, I am not qualified to learn them, but even if I learn them, I cannot teach them to you. There are strict rules. Ling Han, however, was pleased. The power of a 5th level formation was at the spiritual pedestal tier, and he was only a short distance away from the spiritual pedestal tier. Conversely, a 4th level formation was of little value and would soon lose its effect. Deal. He picked up the formation book and left. Yin Hong couldn't help but grit her teeth. She was a top-grade beauty and was naturally seductive. Was this brat blind? The reason why Ling Han could improve so quickly in the field of formations was naturally related to the fact that he had a sliver of the divine sense of the heaven tier. Moreover, he had entered all kinds of historical sites in his last life, and had done a considerable amount of research on formations. He had not started from scratch. He flipped through the book. This Tiandu Thunderstar Array could attract the attack of heavenly thunder, and was divided into 2 sets. One set was the main array, requiring 136 formation eyes. Even a 5th level formation master couldn't control it, so it had to be set up as a dead array. The so-called dead array was like a great mountain protection array, which could only be fixed in a certain place and would only be triggered when someone entered. The advantage was that it was completely automatic and extremely powerful. There were also many disadvantages. Firstly, it couldn't be moved, and once it was set up, it would always be there. Secondly, it couldn't differentiate between enemies, and a wrong step would trigger an attack from the formation. I can set up one here that can block spiritual pedestal tier opponents, Ling Han mumbled, but 136 formation eyes. How many materials would that require? It definitely couldn't be done for the time being. The other set was a child array. Its power was much smaller, but it only required 36 formation eyes. It could become a miniature version of the main array, and the advantage was that it could be driven and operated like the small Tianyuan spirit snake, completely under the control of the formation master, who could attack whoever he wanted. I'll have to bleed a lot. Thankfully, 3 bone-forming pills were auctioned off for 7,000 2-star origin crystals, plus over 100,000 1-star origin crystals. It's enough to buy them. Ling Han exhaled. In this way, formations also burned money, not much less than alchemy. However, although formation masters could also help others set up a great formation to earn money, once the formation was set up, it could be used for hundreds, even thousands or tens of thousands of years. It wasn't consumable like medicinal pills, so formation masters probably didn't earn as much as alchemy. Thankfully, I'm the alchemy emperor. Otherwise, I'd have to cultivate martial art and refine formation eyes. Where would I find so much money to burn? Ling Han shook his head. Walking on the streets, he could obviously see that there were a lot more martial artists coming and going. The North Region Prodigy Tournament was about to begin, so it naturally attracted a lot of people. Some people were here to participate in the tournament, while others were here to join in the fun. Shui Gucheng, battle with me. A loud roar was heard from ahead. You lunatic, this is a busy street. If we battle here, no matter how many people will die, we'll all be chased out of the extreme Yang City. A furious voice shouted. My fighting spirit has been ignited, so I don't care about all that. Come and fight. A figure leapt high into the air. He was short, but he was wielding a heavy hammer that was even taller than him. Just the hammer itself was taller and thicker than his body. Idiot! Another person also flew up and leaped onto the roof, quickly leaving. Chapter 430. Shui Gucheng, the 20th on the prodigy roll last year, was in the second layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, but now he was shockingly in the fourth layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. This was very normal. There were many alchemical pills that could speed up cultivation below the flower blossom tier, and these prodigies definitely had the support of sex, so they could completely change their cultivation completely within a year. And if he wasn't worried about spoiling things through excessive enthusiasm, Shui Gucheng's cultivation could possibly be even higher. For example, Zhu Xian'er's information only showed that she was in the second layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, but now she shockingly advanced to the fifth layer. For these prodigies, every few months their cultivation would be greatly different. If they still judged them with the old standards from a year ago, then they would definitely be deceived. The one ranked below Shui Gucheng was Ji Derong. According to the information, Ji Derong had always been unconvinced, so he challenged the prodigy every time he saw him. That short person just now must be Ji Derong, who fit the description on the information very well. As the time of the prodigy tournament drew closer and closer, all sorts of people appeared. Ling Han shook his head. Qin Yi, Lu Yutong, and Zhu Wujiu all wanted to participate in this year's prodigy tournament, and they were very ambitious. Not only did they want to be on the roll, they also wanted to get a high rank, but there was no hope for them coming now. Originally, Qin Ye's cultivation was the highest, and he had the highest chance of getting a good rank on the roll, but he had already broken through to the spiritual ocean tier before refining the heavenly Lux stone. Unless he broke through to the spiritual pedestal tier, the heavenly Lux stone's effects would be completely useless. Thus, his current battle prowess was at most equal to Zhu Wujiu, who had broken through to the spiritual ocean tier, and was far inferior to Lu Yutong, who had broken through to the spiritual ocean tier. If he didn't have an overwhelming advantage in cultivation level, his battle prowess wouldn't be as strong as Lu Yutong. Ling Han thought as he walked towards Forget Not. It was almost time for dinner. However, when he arrived at the restaurant, he shockingly discovered that a large hole had been blasted in one of the restaurant's walls. It was currently being repaired, so there wasn't a single customer in the restaurant. He frowned and said, "What happened?" Just now there were two madmen fighting and a guy was hit, and his body crashed over, creating a large hole in our restaurant. Fortunately, only a few people were injured, and no one died, Zhu Wujiu said gloomily. Ling Han was immediately enraged and said, "Is there a fellow with a short stature holding a hammer?" "Yes." Zhu Wujiu nodded. Then he asked in surprise, "How did young Master Han know?" Ling Han did not answer. Instead he turned around and left. "Young Master Han, where are you going?" Zhu Wujiu hurriedly caught up to him. "Of course we're going to find those two bastards and make them pay," Ling Han said with a dark face. "Young Master Han, those two people are on the prodigy roll, and they are both in the spiritual pedestal tier. One is ranked 20th, while the other is ranked 21st, Zhu Wujiu said in a trembling voice. He had not known before, either, and only found out how great the background of those two maniacs was after hearing the discussions of others. Ling Han did not even turn his head and said, "So what? I'll beat them up first, then drag them back to work for a month." Zhu Wujiu could not help but shiver. He knew that Ling Han was very fierce and had shocking battle prowess, but there was still a gap of a major tier between them after all. Moreover, Shui Guchang and Ji Derong were both on the prodigy roll, and similarly had the powerful ability to challenge those of a higher cultivation level. That was no joke. You stay here. Someone has to stand guard in the restaurant, Ling Han said in a low voice. Yes, yes. Zhu Wuzhou nodded. When he remembered that Ling Han was an earth-grade alchemist, he could not help but feel relieved. Even if you were the first on the prodigy roll when you saw Ling Han, you would still have to lower your head and address him as Grandmaster. How could he have forgotten about this, worrying for nothing for half a day? Ling Han strode forward and made some inquiries along the way. Shui Guchang and Ji Derong had fought so merrily, so naturally, they had left behind some witnesses along the way. At this moment they were all discussing fervently, and there was no need for Ling Han to deliberately make inquiries. They were all talking about it. Thus, Ling Han very easily followed the path of the battle between the two, but after 10 or so minutes, he heard from the passers-by that the two of them had already stopped fighting, and had returned to their respective homes. Ling Han first tracked down that short hammer-wielding shorty, and made inquiries along the way until he arrived in front of an inn. He shouted loudly, "Shorty G, get your ass out here." The initially noisy inn immediately became quiet. What was going on? Someone actually dared to ask the person ranked 21st on the prodigy roll to get his ass out here. And it was Shorty G at that. Was he trying to stir up a hornet's nest? Everyone knew that though Ji Derong was not the first on the prodigy roll in terms of temper, he was definitely in the top 3. Pung! Indeed, in just an instant, a window was smashed open, and a short man leapt out. Originally, with his stature, it was impossible for him to cause too much damage, but who asked him to be carrying a large hammer on his shoulder? When he crashed into the room, he almost split the entire room into 2 halves. Which bastard actually dares to scold your Lord Ji? Ji Derong's eyes widened in anger. To be able to remain on the prodigy roll, he was at most 30 years old, but his full beard covered his entire face, and he felt that he was more than 40 years old. Ling Han walked over and said, "You idiot! You destroyed my inn. I'm here to capture you and bring you back to be a waiter." Ha 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 ha. When Ji Derong heard this, he was first stunned, then he laughed loudly. Did he hear wrongly? There was actually someone who wanted to capture him and bring him back to be a waiter? He looked at Ling Han a few more times and said, "You're quite interesting, but you shouldn't joke around with your Lord Ji. Joke your sister." Ling Han leapt over, and with a kick, he aimed towards Ji Derong's face. "How dare you?" Ji Derong was furious. Though he admired Ling Han's sense of humor, this young man actually dared to kick him. This was really too audacious. He decided to make Ling Han suffer a bit, but he could still keep his life, and let him entertain him with jokes. He moved and casually made a grabbing motion, but his expression immediately changed, because the power of this kick from Ling Han was astonishingly terrifying, causing even him to feel a chill. Fuck, was this really a young man in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier? Pung! Ji Derong was instantly kicked solidly in the face. With a great force, he was unquestionably stomped onto the ground. Pong! A hole instantly appeared in the ground, and his entire head had sunk in. The destructive power of this kick was too great. Even if Ji Derong was on the prodigy roll, so what? He had already been knocked unconscious, his limbs hanging limply, and he looked like a dead dog. Everyone present turned pale with fright. There was a considerable number of martial artists in this inn. Some had come to participate in the prodigy tournament, while some had come to spectate. Naturally, they all recognized who Ji Derong was. But it was precisely such a young elite that had been knocked unconscious with a single stomp. This instantly caused a considerable number of people, who had planned to participate in the tournament, to want to retreat. My God, with such a monster here, what the hell is the point of participating? I'll teach you how to be a proper person at any moment. All of a sudden, the scene was once again completely silent. Reading on one's phone is more refreshing. Chapter 431. Ling Han was astounded. This man that was like a tall mountain was obviously his sworn brother, Feng Peyun, who he'd just become sworn brothers with yesterday. Who's this? Such nerve, actually daring to call a heaven-tier elite old man. Don't know, probably an unorthodox person. He's been trapped in the city for too long. and his brain has become muddled and crazy. Yes, that's reasonable, that's reasonable. The people on the city walls discussed spiritedly. Not everyone had Ling Han's judgment, being able to see through Feng Peyun's strength. In the eyes of normal people, this large man was only slightly sturdy and extraordinary, and there wasn't much special about him. However, the heaven-tier elites in the open and in the dark all revealed grave expressions. They couldn't see through this large man's strength. This proved one thing. His cultivation wasn't below theirs in the slightest. Bai Yuan was even more careful. With a long whistle, the seven-headed coffin slid over from afar. The other party came with ill intentions, and was most likely going to make a move, so he couldn't be careless. Generally speaking, heaven-tier elites were pretty much standing at the peak of the world, so they were naturally bold and unrestrained. However, who asked the Thousand Corpse sect to be more special? Even the Shattering Void tier sect master had to hide his head and show his tail, never revealing his true body, so the 7 heaven-tier venerables under his command were obviously also cautious. At least before the Thousand Corpse sect officially stood in front of everyone, they all maintained a low profile and cautious style. "Who are you, sir?" Bai Yuan shouted. Feng Peyun picked his ears and said, "Is there something wrong with your hearing? I'm telling you to remove this broken formation, or else I'll personally dismantle it." "Haha, what an arrogant tone. Why don't you dismantle it for me?" Bai Yuan said menacingly. This was the 4th killing formation. Although the sect master didn't obtain the complete formation, and could only unleash 50% of its power, killing low-level Shattering Void tier elites wasn't difficult. This large man actually said he was going to dismantle it. Humph, humph. Feng Peyun's gaze focused, and like a flash of lightning, Bai Yuan felt pain in his eyes as if his eyeballs were about to explode. So strong. Bai Yuan was shocked, and hurriedly commanded the corpse soldiers to attack. Pung pung pung, 7 coffins opened at the same time and 7 corpse soldiers jumped out. Every one of them only had bones left, but the bones were golden in color, as if made of metal. However, on every bone, there were inch-long spikes, giving people an extremely strange feeling. "Just 7 sets of bones and you want to stop me?" Feng Peyun said disdainfully. Bai Yuan was furious. These 7 corpse soldiers were tempered with the sect master's help, and in terms of defense, they already reached the peak of the heaven tier. Even a peak-stage heaven tier warrior would have to spend some effort to destroy them. Moreover, these corpse soldiers' attack power was not weak in the slightest. After the bone spikes were tempered 100 times, they could easily tear open the defense of heaven tier warriors. As long as they got close, they could instantly pierce a heaven tier elite into a bloody hole. "Kill for this old man." Bai Yen pointed at Feng Peyun, and suddenly, the 7 corpse soldiers leaped out at the same time, attacking Feng Peyun. "Should we help?" On top of the city wall, an old woman appeared and asked Dean Shuiyang. "This person, Little Yang, I don't know at all. His strength is unfathomable. Let's talk about it first," Dean Shuiyang said, shaking his head. "I seem to have seen this person somewhere." Another old man appeared, staring at Feng Peyun with a doubtful expression. These 7 corpse soldiers were all 3rd-tier golden-armored corpses, and they were tempered to the extreme. Even if he recovered the strength of his previous life, he wouldn't dare to face them head-on, unless it was a freak like Sword Emperor or Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. Feng Peyun didn't take it to heart at all, and instead took out a wine gourd to drink in big mouthfuls. The wine flowed down the corner of his mouth, and his beard was full of sparkling liquid, full of the vicissitudes of life. The corpse soldiers attacked, and he was instantly submerged in the golden bones. "It's over," everyone said inwardly. Those were 3rd-tier golden armor corpses, and being close to them, no matter how strong a heaven-tier warrior was, it would probably be hard to escape death. They really didn't think that an elite would actually die in such a useless way. Principal Bai sneered. This was the result of not taking him seriously. Did they really think that the Thousand Corpse sect was easy to bully just because they didn't come into the world? Wrong. Everyone in the Thousand Corpse sect raised corpses, and each person could at least fight 1 against 2. The higher the tier, the more terrifying the battle prowess. He alone could stand against 6 or 7 heaven-tier warriors. How shocking was that? Wang, under the attack of the 7 corpse soldiers, a purple brilliance surged, turning into a circle, and then suddenly exploding. Pong, 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 pong. The 7 corpse soldiers were actually blasted away at the same time. And at the same time, the skeleton that was as strong as the peak stage of the heaven tier was disintegrating, turning into countless broken bones. The purple brilliance flickered, and Feng Peyun stood proudly like a supreme god. His feet stepped on the earth and his head reached the sky. The whole world had to crawl and tremble under his body. His eyes were like stars and his hair fluttered, emitting an astonishing divine light like a divine chain of order that could lock and annihilate everything. The supreme aura shook, striking the 9 heavens and shaking the 9 underworlds. He alone reigned supreme. Pa 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 pa. Everyone knelt down. Only heaven-tier warriors could barely resist. But they still couldn't hide the anxiety and terror in their hearts, and almost didn't even have the courage to fight. Shattering void tier. Bai Yuan's face was deathly pale, and his expression was extremely dispirited. The 7 corpse soldiers all had a sliver of his divine sense, and now that it was directly erased by Feng Peyun, he also suffered considerable injuries. At this moment, he at most had 30% of his battle prowess left. However, the 1,000 corpse sect relied entirely on corpse soldiers, and now the 7 corpse soldiers had all become dregs. His 30% of battle prowess was only relative to his main body, and his true battle prowess was probably less than 1%. Everyone no longer had a shred of doubt. Only the strongest existence in this world could defeat 7 peak heaven tier corpse soldiers in one strike. Shattering void tier. Greetings, my lord. On top of the city walls, Yin Shuiyang and the other heaven tier warriors also saluted respectfully. Shattering void tier, even in the middle state, there were only a few, and they could be counted on one's fingers. Feng Peyun. Finally, someone revealed Feng Peyun's identity. Feng Peyun waved his hand, appearing dispirited, and said to Bai Yuan, "Don't say that I'm bullying a child. Remove this great formation, and never come to Million Treasure City again." Bai Yuan similarly saluted respectfully. Regardless of whether he was an enemy or a friend, Shattering Void Tier warriors had too lofty a status, standing at the peak of humanity, and with another step they could become gods, gaining the admiration of the world. However, after saluting, he said, "Forgive this old man for not being able to obey, Lord Feng. Taking down this city is my sect master's order, and this old man doesn't dare to disobey. Then where's your sect master? Have him come out. I'll beat him until he's convinced," Feng Peyun said domineeringly. This, Bai Yuan revealed a hint of annoyance. In his mind, Lord Sect Master was even more like a god, invincible in humanity, so how could he be insulted lightly? He said, "Lord Sect Master is tied up with trivial matters, and can't come see Lord Feng for a while." Chapter 432. After being kicked, Ji Derong finally regained consciousness. He opened his eyes, still a little confused, but he immediately realized that something was wrong. Instantly he shouted, "You brat! Hurry up and release your Grandpa Ji. Let's fight for 300 rounds. A loser still dares to speak bravely." Ling Han kicked him again. "Pa, that's because your Grandpa Ji was careless. Otherwise, with a brat in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier like you, Grandpa Ji would be able to beat you up with a single hand." Ji Derong continued to curse, and had no intention of admitting defeat. Ling Han ignored him, turned to Shui Gucheng and said, "Come here, let me give you a beating, then I'll bring you back to be a waiter." "Hung!" Shui Gucheng sneered. When he heard Ji Derong's words, he had an idea. Ling Han was very strong, but he was only in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and Ji Derong had indeed been careless. Who was he? Shui Gucheng. Ranked 20th on the prodigy roll. Back then, the white-robed sword king could be considered a monster, but wasn't he ranked below him? Now, he was in the 3rd layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and his battle prowess had soared to 8 battle stars. How could someone in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier be his match? "Then let me teach you a lesson," he said with a smile. Ji Derong was defeated by Ling Han, and if he defeated Ling Han, would Ji Derong still have the face to challenge him in future? For a brute like Ji Derong, Shui Gucheng was actually very troubled. Ling Han waved his right hand, and 7 purple patterned gold rods appeared. Wang, the array was activated, and a white snake appeared, surging into Ling Han's body, forcibly increasing his battle prowess by 2 battle stars. Array Master. Shui Gucheng was shocked. These days, array masters were pitifully rare, even rarer than alchemists, but they definitely couldn't be underestimated. Ling Han once again unleashed the demon birth sword. Anyways, many people had already arrived in the dark demon forest, so he didn't want to be secretive anymore. The strongest cultivator in the North region was only in the spiritual infant tier, and facing his identity as an earth-grade alchemist, at least they wouldn't dare to openly rob him. As for stronger existences, they couldn't come over, and even if they did, their strength would be greatly weakened. Anyone would have to think twice before making such a decision. Shui Gucheng's legs instantly turned to jelly. Even if a 10th tier spirit tool was only emitting a sliver of its aura, how could it be anything ordinary? Thankfully, he had managed to form 7 flashes of qi and had advanced into the ranks of a king tier, so the effects he received were not that great. Let's fight. Ling Han smiled faintly. Shui Gucheng felt a headache coming on. The other party had a formation and a high-grade spirit tool, and it seemed like he had an astonishingly rich background, and could even bring out some other treasures at any time. This caused his confidence to plummet in a straight line. But now the arrow was already knocked on the bowstring. In front of so many people, how could he be afraid to fight? If you want to fight, then let's fight. He leapt out and a cold light surged. He too had drawn out his spirit tool. It was a long saber, and he slashed madly at Ling Han. No matter what, his cultivation level was much higher, so in terms of power, he naturally had the absolute upper hand. Thus, he gave up on all his fancy tricks, and wanted to fight head-on with Ling Han. This was the most dependable way for him to achieve victory. Ling Han used the 4-season sword technique, and the concept was continuous, moving as he wished. Compared to Lord Ji, who had been defeated in a single move, Shui Gucheng's situation was much better. He was able to exchange blows with Ling Han, and this made Ji Derong extremely displeased. Didn't this mean that Lord Ji was much weaker than Shui Gucheng? Brat, you really have some tricks up your sleeve. Shui Gucheng's abilities were forced out bit by bit, and he no longer dared to hold back in the slightest. This young man was really too strong. Meanwhile, Ling Han handled the situation with ease. Though the benefits of the heavenly luck stone had not manifested yet, with the boost of power from the Black Tower, his physique had also been greatly improved, and his battle prowess had risen to a whole new level. His current strength had surpassed 20 stars of the spiritual ocean tier by who knew how much, because he could even fight against 8 stars of the spiritual pedestal tier head-on. This was definitely something that others could not accept. The surrounding spectators were all dumbfounded. This was really too freakish. In the previous tournament it was Shinzhong Chang, but when he was in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, he could only match an opponent in the 1st layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. Yet Ling Han could battle an opponent in the 3rd layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, forcibly raising the record by 2 levels. Draw the saber and cut the water. Extinguish emotions and cut off hatred. Shui Gucheng shouted loudly, and used a powerful move. The long saber slanted and 7 flashes of saber chi moved, actually bringing along over 100 flashes of saber light that surged towards Ling Han. Ling Han was slightly surprised. This saber technique was a bit like the mysterious 3000, but the opponent's saber chi could only bring out over a dozen flashes of saber light, and was far from being comparable to the mysterious 3000. But in terms of essence, the two were actually the same. As expected, there was no lack of capable people in this world. However, the inheritance of the Heaven Sword sect was even related to the realm of immortals, and it had not been destroyed for several tens of thousands of years, so it was naturally not something that other sects could compare to. Ling Han did not retreat, but advanced instead. The moment he used a powerful move, it was also the moment when his own defense was at its weakest. Seeing that Ling Han actually moved against the flashes of saber light, everyone was greatly shocked. Though everyone knew that this was definitely the moment when Shui Gucheng's defense was at its weakest, the problem was that the attack was so terrifying. Forcefully withstanding so many flashes of saber light would cause him to be heavily injured, so how could he still be able to attack Shui Gucheng? But what was shocking was that Ling Han's figure twisted, and like a withered leaf dancing in the air, he nimbly passed through all the obstacles and appeared in front of Shui Gucheng. He was now already able to shoot out 1,000 flashes of sword light, so he was naturally very familiar with this kind of attack. Added with the divine sense of the heaven tier, it allowed him to complete a task that in the eyes of others was absolutely impossible to complete. Peng Ling Han's fist shot out and smashed onto Shui Gucheng's face. "Aya!" Shui Gucheng screamed and was instantly sent tumbling onto the ground, fainting. Ling Han waved his hand, and the blood-sucking origin gold became even more slender and long, tying Shui Gucheng up again. "Who is so daring to come to my Tingyu pavilion to cause trouble?" An arrogant voice rang out, and a youngster also walked out from the pavilion. But when he saw Ling Han, his entire body instantly trembled, and he did not even dare to let out a fart, directly turning around and fleeing. It was Lu Qiyuan. How could he not be afraid of Ling Han? He did not do anything, only intimidated him a little, and then went to his family's restaurant once, and was almost beaten to death by his grandfather. And in order to give Ling Han an explanation, his grandfather had even annihilated the Lang clan. A malefic star. Whoever provoked him would be unlucky. There were naturally people here who recognized Lu Qiyuan. Seeing that he was like a mouse that had encountered a cat in front of Ling Han, everyone was shocked. In terms of martial art ability, Shui Gucheng and Ji Derong were naturally far superior to Lu Qiyuan, but in terms of status, the status of the grandson of an earth-grade alchemist was not low either, and he was even a local tyrant, but even Lu Qiyuan was so afraid of Ling Han. What exactly was the background of this youngster? Ling Han only smiled, and dragged Shui Gucheng and Ji Derong away. "Brat, quickly let go of your grandfather Ji." Ji Derong screamed. His cultivation had been sealed by Ling Han, and he could only crawl like a dog with his hands on the ground. Though he was in a rather sorry state, it was still better than being dragged away. "Stop talking nonsense, just obediently work for me for a month." Ling Han humphed. Chapter 433. When Ling Han dragged the two dead dogs back, the people in Forget Not were all dumbfounded. That was too ferocious, wasn't it? Those were existences close to the 20th place on the prodigy roll, yet they were defeated by Ling Han just like that. At this moment, Lu Yutong and the others had also come over. They naturally already understood the situation, and were also extremely shocked. Ling Han had actually easily defeated two experts on the prodigy roll. His battle prowess was really too shocking. Ling Han withdrew the blood-sucking origin gold and said, "Wu Jiu, keep an eye on them and make them work hard. If they dare to slack off, just beat them up. There's no need to hold back." He had already sealed their cultivation. "Yes." Zhu Wujiu hurriedly nodded. Since Ling Han had said so, then no matter what, he would obey. Who cared what sex stood behind these two people? Shui Gucheng was beaten awake, but his cultivation was sealed, so he could only lower his head. Otherwise, if he was beaten up by a minor character like Zhu Wujiu, how could he endure it? Ji Derong also became obedient after shouting for him all the way. The two of them obediently served dishes and really became waiters. The hole in the wall was temporarily sealed, and the restaurant reopened for business. Because of its reputation, there was naturally no lack of customers, and some of them had even followed Ling Han all the way here. Now that there were two figures on the prodigy roll as waiters, how could they not come and have a meal? In the future, when they told others that their lord had been served by figures on the prodigy roll, how could they not be envious? When they received the menu, they were shocked at first. What the hell was this? It actually cost 1 origin crystal for a dish, but many people ordered it, and the fragrance was really tempting, so they couldn't help but order a dish to have a taste. The result was naturally obvious. "Waiter, give me another extreme treasure." "Me too. Me too." Shui and Ji both wanted to cry, but no tears came out. To think that they were experts ranked on the prodigy roll, but now they had actually been reduced to serving as waiters. What was even more depressing was that the business here was booming, making them so busy that it was even more tiring than fighting a war. "How many of you want to participate in the prodigy tournament?" Ling Han asked everyone on the 3rd floor. Lu Yutong and the others all raised their hands. Aside from Li Xichan and Guang Yuan, everyone else wanted to participate. Even Hu Niu raised her small hand high. Ling Han calculated. Ken Yi was now at the 3rd layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and his battle prowess was 9 stars. Lu Yutong was at the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and her battle prowess was 10 stars. Zhu Wujiu was at the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and his battle prowess was 7 stars. He said, "There's still a month left. I'll think about how to give you guys special training so that your battle prowess can rise to at least 15 stars. Otherwise, don't go and embarrass yourselves." Can you improve that much in just 1 month? Lu Yutong didn't believe it. Ling Han revealed a devilish smile and said, "Believe me, as long as you don't die, it won't be difficult to reach the 15 star. When he smiled like that, Lu Yutong and the other 2 shivered. They felt a chill run down their spines, and a strong sense of foreboding arose in their hearts. Ling Han rubbed Hu Nyo's head and said, "From now on, only Nyo can be on the roll, and it won't be difficult to enter the top 10. He paused, then said, "If Nyo breaks through to the spiritual pedestal tier, the 1st place is also in the bag." Hu Nyo laughed proudly, revealing 2 rows of small white teeth. Lu Yutong and the others were shocked, never thinking that Ling Han would give such a high evaluation to Hu Nyo. This was only a 6-year-old little girl. Also, Hu Nyo was about to break through to the spiritual pedestal tier. "Wait, young Master Han, you're not participating?" Zhu Wujiu was startled. "Che, there's no reward, why would I participate?" Ling Han waved his hand. Ken Yi was shocked and said, "Young Master Han, being able to enter the prodigy role represents supreme glory." Ling Han only smiled. In his last life, he was the Alchemy Emperor, an ultimate warrior of heaven tier. Did he need a ranking on the prodigy role to prove himself? Moreover, after meeting Yao Huiyu, he did not take the prodigy role seriously anymore. "It's enough with Nyo here. Get the 1st place and give it to Ling Han," Hu Nyo said, patting her chest. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "All right, this time it's Nyo's." 2 prodigies on the prodigy role became waiters, which naturally caused a great commotion. Every day, people would come because of its reputation. Their original intention was obviously to experience the enjoyment of being served by prodigies on the prodigy role, but as long as they ate the delicacies of Forget-Not, there would naturally be a large batch of returning customers. Unfortunately, the restaurant space was limited. Even if it operated from morning until late at night, there were still so many customers that there was a long line, making Lu Yutong think of opening a branch. After getting Ling Han's nod, she immediately picked a location in high spirits. In the blink of an eye, another 10 days passed, and Lu Yutong and the others also experienced a true hell-like cultivation in the Black Tower. Ling Han completely trained them to death, and the intensity of the training was so high that it made one's hair stand on end. Every day, after they finished their training, they would immediately lie down and fall asleep. This also caused Lu Yutong's plan to choose a location for a branch to be delayed indefinitely. However, the effect was also extremely shocking. After squeezing out all of their potential, Lu Yutong and the others' cultivation improved very obviously, making even Guang Yuan envious, and he also joined in. In the end, it was very soon a mixture of pain and happiness. The 4 people's cultivation improved very quickly, but this experience also became a lifelong nightmare for them. Ling Han made another trip to the Spirit Treasures Pavilion to inquire about the 9-leaf black Ganoderma, but he still had to wait for Yin Hong's answer. He went to Forget-Not. Now that Lu Yutong and the others were desperately cultivating in the Black Tower, he obviously had to pay more attention to the matters of the restaurant. Get lost. However, when he just arrived at Forget-Not, he was blocked by 2 people before he even entered. What a joke. This was his restaurant, and there were actually people blocking his way. This restaurant has been reserved by our young master, and we are not accepting anyone else today. Get lost, get lost. One of them waved his hand disdainfully at Ling Han. Ling Han frowned. He would never allow a restaurant to be reserved, and it was this so-called young master who had forced his way in. Since they had forced his way in, then he would not be polite. He directly stretched out his hands, grabbed the 2 people, and then slammed them in the middle. The 2 of them were knocked unconscious. He walked in and saw that the employees were all trembling with fear, and there were even a few footprints on Shui Guchang and Ji Derong's bodies. Obviously they had been kicked by someone. There was only one table in the hall on the first floor, and there was a young man sitting there with an arrogant expression. He looked like he was about 20 years old, and behind him stood 4 servants, all of them wearing flattering expressions. And the taste is really not bad, the young man said as he ate. Ling Han walked over, and the 4 servants immediately walked towards Ling Han shouting, "Our young master has reserved the entire restaurant, get lost." "This is the first time I've heard that the boss is not allowed to enter his own restaurant," Ling Han said calmly. "Oh, so you are the boss of this restaurant?" The young man beckoned at Ling Han and said, "There is no need to open for business this month. When I have finished the prodigy tournament, you can follow me back in the future. I guarantee that you will not suffer any losses. Hurry up and thank young Master Long." The 4 servants shouted at the same time. Chapter 434. Ling Han broke into a smile and said, "Thank you indeed." That young Master Long was immensely pleased with himself, but before he could finish his thought, he felt his vision darken. Pong, his face crashed onto the table, and under the huge impact, the entire table was shattered into pieces. His face was also covered in soup. "How dare you!" The 4 servants shouted angrily at the same time, and all grabbed at Ling Han. Pung 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 pung. Ling Han instantly threw out 4 punches, and the 4 servants instantly clutched their chests, their faces pale as they sat down on the ground. They felt that they couldn't catch their breath no matter how hard they tried, and the discomfort was indescribable. "Fuck, who asked you to be so arrogant?" Ji Derong charged over and started to beat up the 4 servants. His cultivation was sealed, and because he was too slow in serving the dishes, it was inevitable that he would be arrogant since he was an elite warrior on the prodigy roll. As a result, he was ruthlessly kicked by that young man. If it wasn't for the fact that he had the spiritual pedestal tier's origin power to temper his body, he would definitely be heavily injured by now. How could he not be enraged? The expression on Shui Gucheng's face was not much better. It was just that he was not as rash as Ji Derong, and was even more disdainful to lower himself to the level of a few servants. Ling Han thought for a moment, then with a wave of his hand, undid the seals on Ji and Shui Gucheng's bodies, and said, "On the account that you two have performed well these 10 days, I'll consider the debt settled." Shui Gucheng and Shui Gucheng were still in slight disbelief, and only when they felt the surging origin power in their bodies did they wake up from their dreams. They were both deeply moved. These 10 days their origin power had been sealed, and they were like ordinary people, allowing them to experience a different taste of life, and seem to have a deeper understanding of martial art. "Bastard, you actually dare to injure me." Young Master Long crawled to his feet, a carrot hanging from the corner of his mouth. His face was covered in soup, and his expression was filled with rage. "Do you know who I am?" Hearing such a familiar tone, "I can guess that you have a very powerful elder brother, or perhaps a father," Ling Han said with a smile. "Wrong, I have an extremely powerful elder sister," young Master Long said proudly. "Pa!" He was once again slapped onto the ground by Ling Han. "What a stubborn idiot," Ling Han said with a shake of his head. Ji Derong glared at the young man, and said in a very ferocious manner, "Han, young Master Han, hand this brat over to Ji De. No, hand him over to me to deal with, what do you say?" He licked his lips, his eyes ablaze. This young man was only in the 7th layer of Gushing Spring tier, and he was actually bullied by such a minor character. If he did not take revenge for this, how could he still be considered a human? In comparison, he was actually quite convinced of Ling Han's abilities. The latter's abilities were indeed impressive, and he was no match for him. "You dare!" Young Master Long shouted loudly. "My elder sister is Zhu Xian Heir." Ji Derong and Shui Gucheng both exclaimed in astonishment. Zhu Xian'er was not only the most beautiful person in the North region, she also had the potential to become the strongest person in the younger generation of the North region. In the future, it was possible that her achievements would not only be limited to the spiritual infant tier. One could offend anyone but not Zhu Xian'er because her influence was too great. She only needed to raise her voice, and how many heroes would be willing to go through fire and water for her? Pong, young Master Long was once again slapped onto the ground by Ling Han. "What are you shouting for? Pay up!" Ling Han said fiercely. Pay up? Pay up? Young Master Long looked very surprised. He was obviously the victim, all right? You broke the table in my shop, don't pay up. Ling Han said fiercely. It was obviously you who knocked my head onto the table. Young Master Long said weakly. With a pung fine he once again crashed onto the floor, smashing a hole in it. How dare you, you actually broke the floor of my shop again. Ling Han said darkly. Young Master Long felt extremely wronged. It was obviously him who was being beaten up, so why was he being blamed? But after being continuously hit a few times, he could be considered to have realized that Ling Han was even more arrogant and overbearing than he was, and even more unreasonable. People like him were usually arrogant, but what he was most afraid of was being fiercely yelled at by others. Now that he was repeatedly beaten up by Ling Han, he was finally afraid. I'll pay up, he said obediently. How much? Ling Han snatched the spatial ring from his hand and directly wiped away the divine sense that the other had left behind. Then, he scanned inside and found that there were actually a few thousand origin crystals. He couldn't help but smile and say, just this much, I don't think it's too little. You're practically robbing me. Young Master Long said, feeling wronged. Ling Han glared at him. Young Master Long hurriedly shook his head and said, you deserve it. You can scram now. Ling Han casually flung his hand and threw young Master Long away. The 4 servants did the same. Wait and see, I'll definitely be back. After young Master Long ran far away, he threw down these words and then broke into a mad dash. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. A second-generation ancestor was a second-generation ancestor, only knowing how to use others' power to intimidate others. Ling Han will meet again in 20 days at the Prodigy Tournament. I definitely won't lose to you, Shui Guchang said coldly. Ling Han had heard of the rules of the Prodigy Tournament. In this kind of tournament, alchemical pills and spirit tools were not allowed to be used to avoid unfair competition. However, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion would prepare a large number of weapons, all forged from level 5 materials. Though they weren't spirit tools, they were extremely sturdy and strong enough to withstand the attack of a spiritual pedestal tier elite. In Shui Gucheng's mind, he was able to win against him because of the demon birth sword. Thus, since the Prodigy Tournament didn't allow the use of spirit tools, he naturally had a chance of winning. Ling Han didn't bother to explain, and only waved his hand. When the time came, he just let Hunyo ravage him. Ji Derong hurriedly broke into a run. After being tormented by Ling Han for 10 days, he could be considered to be filled with wariness towards Ling Han, so he naturally had to keep his distance from this demon. Young Master Long, whose full name was Zhu Longxing, was indeed Zhu Xian'er's younger brother. Actually, his talent in martial art wasn't bad, but it was still a far cry from Zhu Xian'er's. Moreover, he didn't have the fanatical pursuit of martial art in his personality, so he only ate, drank, and played around. At present, he was only in the 7th layer of Gushing Spring tier. How could he be willing to suffer such a huge loss? He immediately ran to find someone to help him, and his first choice was Lu Qiyuan, who had recently called him brother and was on very good terms with him. When he arrived at Listen to the Rain Pavilion, Lu Qiyuan received him very warmly. Good wine, good food, and there were even beautiful singers and dancers to accompany him, giving him enough face. Brother Qiyuan, I was bullied by someone today. After drinking a few cups of wine, Zhu Longxing couldn't hold it in any longer, and began to complain to Lu Qiyuan. What, there's someone in this extreme Yang city who dares to bully my brother. Tell me who's so daring. I'll chop off his dog head for you. Lu Qiyuan immediately said, patting his chest. Many thanks, Brother Qiyuan, Zhu Longxing hurriedly said. I've asked around, that guy's name is Ling Han. Who? Lu Qiyuan instantly sprayed out a mouthful of wine, which directly splashed onto Zhu Longxing's face, making Zhu Longxing's face filled with confusion. What was the meaning of this? Cough, cough, cough. Lu Qiyuan couldn't stop coughing, and hurriedly drank some tea to suppress his shock. Holding on to a sliver of hope, he said, It can't be can't Ling Han, right? It's that guy. Lu Qiyuan sprayed another mouthful of wine, which was surprisingly accurate, splashing onto Zhu Longxing's face again. Zhu Longxing. 10,000 grass mud horses galloped past. What the fuck? It's fine if you sprayed me once, but do you have a grudge against me? Chapter 435. Is there still a need to compete? Lu said indifferently, but she was incomparably arrogant in her bones. In the alchemy competition, he invited a low-level earth-grade alchemist, and in the martial arts competition, he even invited the freak Xianyuan Ziguang. He himself specialized in formations, and had already become a 6th-tier formation master. No matter what, he should have a complete victory in this competition, adding an incomparably glorious stroke to his resume. Why not compete? Hong crossed her arms, completely showing off her majestic breasts, as if disdaining others for not knowing that her breasts were large. Who knows, that alchemist of yours might fail miserably in an easy task. That's right, pill refinement is a meticulous work, and one careless mistake could result in a complete loss. Clan brother Lu is too complacent, Hao said angrily. Then let's compete. Under the supervision of the clan's bigwigs, the alchemy competition officially began. Actually, every clan could send 3 alchemists onto the stage, and choose the one with the best results. Lu was full of confidence and only sent Xian Jiyun, while Hong obviously trusted Ling Han even more, and only sent one person. The other 3 clans used up all 3 slots, afraid of making a mistake and adding insurance. Furnace explosion during pill refinement was an extremely common thing. Even heaven-grade alchemists like Kong Zisher and Nongbo Exine couldn't guarantee 100% success rate, let alone others. There was only one chance in the alchemy competition, and if the furnace exploded, it would be over. First, choose the medicinal ingredients and determine what kind of medicinal pill to be refined. This involved a very deep game. As mentioned earlier, no alchemist dared to pat their chest and say that they would definitely succeed in pill refinement. The difference was that refining low-grade medicinal pills was infinitely close to 100% success rate, and the higher the grade of the medicinal pill, the closer it was to one's alchemy level, so the failure rate would skyrocket. Normally, when a low-level earth-grade alchemist refined a low-level earth-grade medicinal pill, the success rate was only about 30%, which was equivalent to refining 3 furnaces of medicinal pills, and only 1 furnace could succeed. Thus, if Xian Jiyun chose to refine a low-level earth-grade medicinal pill and succeeded, then the other alchemists could only admit defeat willingly. But what if he failed? One had to know that the failure rate was as high as 60%, and once he failed, then it was nothing. So, choosing what kind of medicinal pill to refine not only depended on one's own alchemy level, but also how the opponent chose. For a moment, although the 10 alchemists were pacing back and forth in front of the medicine cabinet, and the medicine basket was filled with a lot of materials, whether or not they were refining this kind of medicinal pill, whether or not it was a smokescreen, only they knew in their hearts. This was a process of a battle of wits and courage. Only Ling Han didn't care, and he directly chose the materials to be refined. Unfortunately, there was actually no heaven-grade material in the medicine cabinet. True, heaven-grade materials were too precious, so how could they be taken out? It was common knowledge that there were only 3 heaven-grade alchemists in the whole world now, and if the Spirit Treasures Pavilion took out heaven-grade medicinal ingredients now, other than wasting them, what use would it have? They were merchants, not idiots. Forget it, then let's just refine a high-level earth-grade one. Ling Han casually chose and couldn't be bothered to pay attention to the others. To him, alchemy was just a formality. His goal was the martial arts tournament 6 days later, the battle with Xianyuan Ziguang, and who was the strongest in the younger generation. He returned to his own position, and immediately opened the furnace to concoct pills. Is this guy an idiot starting to concoct just like that? There are obviously 3 days, and the first day is definitely a battle of wits and pressure the opponent. It's best if he can make the opponent make a mistake and choose to refine a high-level medicinal pill, then the possibility of the furnace exploding would be higher. Coming to the North region means he doesn't want to win. Last time he was at the bottom, and this time probably won't be an exception. I reckon the first place this time is the South region. A low-level earth-grade alchemist has a huge psychological advantage, and if he chooses to refine a high-level black-grade medicinal pill, not only will the success rate increase greatly, it can also force others to choose to refine high-level black-grade medicinal pills, and the possibility of the opponent's furnace exploding is extremely high. Yeah, Xianyuan Ziguang has also been roped in by the South region, and in the martial arts tournament, he should be able to secure first place. Yin Li's strength in formations is even more impressive, and even if she can't get first place, she'll be able to secure second place. 2 first places and 1 second place, that'll definitely be the champion this time. The big shots of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion all spoke one after another, but there were also a few who revealed pensive expressions, such as Yin Shuiyang, who was looking at Ling Han. Being able to become sworn brothers with a shattering void tier elite, how could he possibly be simple? Isn't that brat's technique shocking? Soon there were exclamations of surprise. Although the Spirit Treasures Pavilion didn't have their own alchemist, they had always had an extremely good relationship with the Alchemist Society, and could often get alchemists to refine pills. Thus, even if they didn't know how to refine pills themselves, they could still taste some flavor. Ling Han's technique was definitely shocking. Experienced and ruthless. Smooth. Done in one go. More and more people arrived, and all revealed shocked expressions. This youngster was only 24 or 25 years old, so how could his technique be so skilled? What medicinal pill is he refining? The material seems to be the 5 turns black jade pill. Isn't this a high-level earth-grade medicinal pill? What, this guy is crazy wanting to refine a high-level earth-grade medicinal pill. Meanwhile, the corner of Ing Hong's mouth twitched, thinking that this guy was already giving them face by not refining a heaven-grade medicinal pill. Otherwise, he would have scared them to death. Ling Han's technique was practiced and smooth, to the point that people couldn't help but feel a sense of beauty, as if it wasn't alchemy, but rather a master performing art. Too wonderful. After completing the selection and purification of the ingredients, Ling Han began to refine the pill. He was now in the flower blossom tier, and refining a high-level earth-grade medicinal pill no longer required the help of the strange fire. His own strength was already enough. His figure moved, and he struck palm after palm at the alchemy furnace. Flames rolled, and one after another seals shone brightly. This was drawing upon the essence of heaven and earth in the ingredients, perfectly interweaving the medicinal effects. Phew, unbelievable. This guy's technique is too experienced. Could it be that there really is hope to form a pill? From the looks of it, everything is going smoothly. There's going to be another alchemy genius in this world. He's already a high-level earth-grade alchemist in his 20s, so it's extremely possible that he'll advance into the ranks of heaven-grade in the future. Don't you guys forget, this guy's talent in martial arts isn't bad either. What a freak! Ling Han was unmoved, and only focused on alchemy. After a little less than half a day, multiple wisps of dense qi floated above the alchemy furnace, turning into the shapes of mountains and rivers, birds and beasts, which was incredibly wondrous. The pill is about to form, everyone exclaimed. Xian Jiyun and the other alchemists were even more shocked by Ling Han. The difference of one level in alchemy was like the difference of one major tier in martial arts. That was an absolute gap. Not to mention that a high-level earth-grade alchemist was almost standing at the peak of alchemy, making them want to prostrate themselves in worship. Oh. Chapter 436. Speaking of which, the person from this morning is even more powerful, only 21 years old and already in the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, with battle prowess reaching 12 stars. What, someone can surpass 10 stars in battle prowess? What's that person called? Shuren Ping. Never heard of him. Indeed, never heard of him. According to his registration information, he came from overseas. Hey, that means he came from the seas outside the desolate north, is that true? Who knows? No wonder I've never heard of him before. Some people came early in the morning, so they didn't miss anything from beginning to end, knowing what amazing new talents appeared during the registration process. Actually, some of the new talents weren't young, but they missed the last batch due to various things, and only managed to catch up this time. This was normal. After all, the prodigy role was just an empty title. If it was the crucial time to fight for treasures, who would be willing to give it up and come to fight? Master Ling. Ling Han and the others were queuing up when they saw people in front greet them and specially walk over. There were quite a few of them, and they were the ones they saw at the Fallen Moon Gorge. Gu Fenghua, Qi Hualan, Lin Xiangqin, and the others after more than half a year, their cultivation all reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. But none of them broke through to the spiritual pedestal tier. It wasn't that they couldn't, but that they were consolidating their cultivation. Forcibly raising their cultivation level for an empty title was like pulling up seedlings to help them grow, causing great harm to their future cultivation. How could the prodigies that could enter the role not understand this? How long could they stay proud on the prodigy role? The longest was 10 years, but they could all advance to the flower blossom tier in the future, and their lifespan was as long as 300 years, so what was 10 years worth of glory? How could they lose the big for the small? Long time no see. Ling Han clasped his hands at them. Everyone chatted about recent events, and naturally couldn't avoid talking about the domineering battle between the Rain Emperor, Yao Huiyu, and the demonic ape in the Dark Demon Forest, all of them looking forward to it. One should be like Yao Huiyu. I'll be the second spear in the world in the future, Su Wentong said with a smile. If I could be like Grandmaster Ling and become an earth-grade alchemist, wouldn't I also be able to dazzle the world? Lin Xiangqin laughed lightly, her charm overflowing. She had the same effect as Yin Hong, both of them natural beauties. This guy and Yao Huiyu are both freaks, but one is in martial art, while the other is in the Tao of Alchemy, Gu Fenghua lamented. Qi Hualan said seriously, Master Ling's talent in martial art isn't weak either. Everyone was startled, mainly because Ling Han's achievements in alchemy were too dazzling, becoming an earth-grade alchemist at the age of 17, causing everyone to subconsciously forget his talent in martial art. When this guy was in the Gushing Spring tier, he'd already cut through the spiritual ocean tier, and now that he'd advanced into the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, would he be able to cut through the spiritual pedestal tier? Moreover, he'd only just turned 18 years old. Don't worry, I won't be participating in this gathering, said Ling Han with a smile. You scared this freak to death. If you participate, you'll definitely snatch away one of the spots, and maybe I'll be eliminated, Gu Fenghua said, patting his chest, looking like he'd let out an exaggerated sigh of relief. Master Ling won't be on the prodigy role. Lin Xiangqin threw him another coquettish glance, tempting his heart. In truth, she wasn't trying to seduce Ling Han, but rather was born this way, throwing him a coquettish glance when she wasn't paying attention. Haha, what big words. Someone at the side was unconvinced, crossing his arms over his chest with a disdainful expression. Seeing everyone's gaze on him, he gave himself a thumbs up. Jiawenda of the Blood Flame Valley is me. If you guys are unconvinced, I'll beat all of you up one by one. Blood Flame Valley, no wonder they were so arrogant. The 4 strongest forces of the North region were 1 valley and 3 sects, and the valley was the Blood Flame Valley, which had even nurtured a genius like Zwayuda. Everyone was young and impetuous, so naturally none of them were convinced, glaring angrily at him. Ling Han, however, waved his hand and said, No need to lower yourself to the level of these small fries. That's right, who are we? Why do we have to fight with these small fries? If we really meet them, we'll just cut them down with one strike. Gu Fenghua and the others all nodded, yet it made Jiawenda's expression ashen. He had intentionally provoked them because there were a few incredibly beautiful women in this group, naturally to attract the attention of the beauties, but he didn't expect that they wouldn't take him seriously at all. Detestable guy, when you see my battle prowess later, see how scared you all will be. Jiawenda said inwardly, but he managed to restrain himself. Martial artists naturally spoke with their fists. Without sufficient strength, the words that came out of their mouths were like farts. It's the 7 sons of Ao family's turn. Someone exclaimed in front. Ao Xinglai and the others indeed filed out, arriving in front of the testing stone monument. However, Ao Xinglai and Ao Yuanwei were both on the prodigy roll, so they automatically obtained the right to enter the main competition. Half a year had passed, and 3 of the 7 sons of Ao family had actually stepped into the spiritual pedestal tier, namely Ao Xinglai, Ao Yuanwei, and Ao Jiancheng. Ao Jiancheng was the 7th, but he actually managed to catch up, which was a bit strange. The 5 sons of Ao family that didn't directly enter the main competition were tested one by one, and all of them obtained battle prowess above 15 battle stars. It could be seen that though their cultivation level hadn't increased in this half a year, their battle prowess had increased considerably. Ao Jiancheng even had battle prowess of 3 stars of the spiritual pedestal tier, and could be ranked in the top 40 on the prodigy roll. Of course, this was based on last year's battle prowess, and it might not be the same this year. Yuan Wei and I also want to test our battle prowess, you don't mind, right? Ao Xinglai asked the few people in charge of recording with a smile. Of course not, please. The few people nodded at the same time. They definitely had to give face to the heroes on the prodigy roll. Ao Xinglai nodded, and said to Ao Yuan Wei, second you first. Ao Yuan Wei nodded expressionlessly. Ever since he'd stepped into the spiritual pedestal tier, he'd always refused to accept the second ranking, and wanted to replace Ao Xinglai, but never had a good chance. This time he'd let the other test his battle prowess. He took a long saber from the weapons rack on the side. This was made from level 5 materials, and could completely withstand the powerful power of the spiritual pedestal tier. He focused, calmed his breathing, and after at least 3 breaths' time, he suddenly slashed out with the saber. Hong! 7 flashes of saber chi swirled, but they struck the same spot on the stone tablet as the tip of the saber, exploding all the attack power in such a small area. This kind of test, rather than saying it was battle prowess, it would be better to say it was the strongest destructive power. Under normal circumstances, there was no chance for you to prepare for 3 breaths' time before attacking. You'd have already died a few times. Wong wong wong, the characters on the 5th row lit up one after another. 1 2 3 4 5. Battle prowess of 5 stars of the spiritual pedestal tier. This was quite extraordinary. Because he just stepped into the spiritual pedestal tier, he naturally focused on increasing his cultivation level. Where would he have the time to temper his origin power and solidify his cultivation level? This kind of thing was obviously only done when he reached the 9th layer. As expected of the second son of the Ao family, the 78th place in the last tournament so strong. This time, he might be able to surpass the eldest son of the Ao family. The second son of the Ao family can improve so much. Could it be that the eldest son of the Ao family can't? It's Ao Xinglai, right? Everyone's gazes turned to Ao Xinglai. Chapter 437. Oh! Ao Xinglai smiled proudly, and drew a long sword from the weapons rack. However, he didn't make any preparations at all, and directly slashed with his sword. Wong wong wong, the same characters on the 5th row lit up 1 2 3 4 5 5. 5 stars of the spiritual pedestal tier. But compared to Ao Yuan Wei, one prepared for 3 breaths before striking out with the battle prowess of 5 stars of the spiritual pedestal tier, while the other had such power with a casual strike, the difference was very obvious. Ao Yuan Wei's expression darkened, and the other 5 sons didn't look much better. The gap between them and Ao Xinglai was getting bigger and bigger. 5. Please come and fill out your information, a person in charge of registration said with a smile. Though these 5 sons of the Ao family were also contestants in the last tournament, they didn't enter the ranking, so they were considered newcomers every year. The 5 sons went to fill out their information. Next, they had to test their bone age, while Ao Xinglai and Ao Yuan Wei were invited to the lounge. Everyone continued to line up. Isn't that Yu Kunluan? There was a commotion in the crowd as they all walked in. A tall and slender man appeared, exuding a powerful aura that was very shocking. However, there was a slender and graceful beauty beside him. Even Yu Kunluan's aura couldn't suppress her. Standing beside him, she wasn't overshadowed, but appeared even more dazzling in comparison. Who is this girl? So beautiful my soul is about to leave me. Not inferior to Fairy Zhu, right? Hey, that's because you haven't seen Fairy Zhu. As long as you've seen Fairy Zhu, all other women are as ugly as pigs. Hey, is Fairy Zhu that beautiful? Hearing everyone's discussion, Huang Han was quite proud at first, but the more she heard, the colder her pretty face became. For a beauty, the most annoying thing was that her appearance was inferior to others, not to mention being looked down upon as worthless. Zhu Xian during the prodigy tournament, I'll carve your face into a flower. How can you still be beautiful then? She thought resentfully. Yu Kunluan strode forward. His cultivation of the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier could be considered unparalleled in the current younger generation, and his aura alone could crush others. However, those who did not break through to the flower blossom tier were all mortals, and that step was far too difficult to take. Perhaps 10 or 20 years later, he would still be at the same spot. But now Yukuan was too strong. Everyone lowered their heads as he walked past. Firstly, it was because they were suppressed by the other party's aura, and secondly, it was out of respect towards the former number 1 on the prodigy roll. He brought Hua Yinghan to the testing area and said with a smile, "Do you mind if I cut in line?" I don't mind. No matter what, the previous champion of the prodigy roll should have some special privileges. Junior apprentice sister, please, Yukuan said with a smile. Hua Yinghan nodded and picked up a sword from the weapons rack. She concentrated and calmed herself, her almond-shaped eyes glowing. It was obvious that she was about to unleash a powerful move. Originally, with her cultivation level of the spiritual pedestal tier, a casual strike would be enough, and she would definitely be able to enter the main competition, but she was obviously stimulated and wanted to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. After a few breaths of time, she suddenly pounced forward and struck with her sword. Bang! Countless golden lights actually flickered behind her, and it caused many people to be unable to help but turn around. Hong! Her sword struck, and the characters on the 5th row of the testing stone steel immediately lit up. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 11 12 23. Battle prowess of 13 stars of spiritual pedestal tier. Hiss! Everyone cried out in surprise. Another dark horse appeared in this competition. Battle prowess of 13 stars of spiritual pedestal tier. She could even squeeze into the top 10, right? Hua Yinghan smiled proudly. She was not convinced by Zhu Xian air. What number 1 beauty of the North region, what number 1 genius? This time, she was here to drag her down from her high horse. Passed, please come and register. The person in charge of registration said hurriedly. Yukuan smiled and said, "You don't mind if I also take a test?" "No problem, of course, no problem." Hearing that the number 1 who had just retired from the prodigy role said he wanted to test his battle prowess, everyone became excited. What kind of battle prowess did the former number 1 have? Last year it was speculated that his battle prowess reached 17 stars, so would it be 18 stars now, or even 19 stars? Yukuan very quickly struck with his sword, and the characters on the 5th row lit up one after another. Finally 18 characters lit up. 18 stars of spiritual pedestal tier. This was the strongest battle prowess that had appeared so far. Everyone cried out in surprise. A difference of 1 star of battle prowess could decide the victor. How awesome was 18 stars of battle prowess? As expected of the number 1 on the last prodigy roll, strong. This was the effect that Yukuan wanted. Though he had retired from the role, he could not let go of that kind of glory. No matter what, he had to make his presence known. After a period of clamor, the test continued. This time there were no more freaks. Most people were mercilessly eliminated after the test. After all, only the top 200 in battle prowess would be taken. Finally, it was Gu Fenghua and the others' turn. One by one they went up to be tested, and the results were all good news. At least they were still within the top 200. Gu Fenghua was the more miserable one. In the 3 tests he had not been able to enter the top 200 in the first 2 times. Only in the last time did he explode, but it was unknown who he had squeezed out. There were only 200 people, and in the end another 56 people had to be eliminated. During the test, one could attack a total of 3 times, and the one with the best result would be taken to prevent one's performance from being abnormal due to nervousness. "I'll go first," Zhu Wujiu said. He strode up to the testing stone tablet, took out a long sword, and used the 4-season sword technique. When the sword technique was channeled to the extreme, he slashed out. Gee! Dazzling sparks flickered on the stone tablet, and the characters on the 4th row also lit up. 15 stars of the spiritual ocean tier passed. Come and register. Zhu Wujiu instantly looked pleasantly surprised. Who would have thought that over a year ago, he was still an unremarkable disciple of Huyang University, but now, he could actually appear on the stage of the North Region's Prodigy Tournament. Furthermore, He only needed to win one match to become a prodigy on the roll. All of this was brought to him by that man, that young man who was even a few years younger than him. Zhu Wujiu could not help but cast a glance at Ling Han, and solemnly bowed. His heart was filled with gratitude, and he secretly swore that he would use his entire life to repay Ling Han. His Diawanda broke out in a cold sweat. He was also in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but his battle prowess was only 14 stars. Qin Yi was the 2nd. What, even a cripple is here? This is the prodigy roll, not the heaven crippling roll. Ha 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 ha. Some mean people immediately laughed loudly, but Qin Yi was not angered in the slightest. He merely took out a long saber and shwa with a slash wong wong. The characters on the 4th row of the testing stone tablet immediately lit up. 15 stars of the spiritual ocean tier. His result was the same as Zhu Wujiu's, but considering that the heavenly luck stone inside his body had yet to show its effects, even if he was a minor tier higher than Zhu Wujiu, his talent was really much higher than Zhu Wujiu's. Passed. Qin Yi similarly bowed to Ling Han, and then walked over to fill in the information. The people who mocked Qin Yi earlier immediately lost their voices, and their expressions became extremely ugly. Being able to enter the main competition was already an impressive figure, and if he advanced a step further, he would definitely become a flower blossom tier warrior in the future. Was it really good to offend a flower blossom tier warrior? Those people were already thinking of apologizing to Qin Yi later. No matter what, they couldn't let a future flower blossom tier warrior remember them. Meanwhile, Jiao Wenda's face began to turn green. Oh. Chapter 438. Here outstanding performance would receive cheers and the favor of beauties. Once Qin Yi and Zhu Wujiu broke out of the encirclement, many beauties immediately threw flirtatious glances at them. Even Zhang Yuxian, Di Tinglan, and other noble young ladies were no exception, but their expressions were much more reserved. People on the prodigy roll would definitely enter the flower blossom tier. Who wouldn't want to marry such a hero? And which force wouldn't want to recruit such a future elite? Flower blossom tier in the north region was an absolute elite. I'm going, Lu Yutong said to Ling Han. Ling Han nodded. Today was only registration, so Guang Yuan and Li Xichan didn't come, but when the competition officially started tomorrow, they would naturally come to cheer. Lu Yutong appeared. She was dressed in white, and she was as beautiful as a fairy. Everyone in the surroundings was instantly entranced by her beauty. Beauties weren't rare, but beauties with high talent in martial art were rare. Each one was a rare resource, which was why Huang Han caused such a huge commotion. Lu Yutong also used the 4 seasoned sword arts, and when she used the most powerful move, she slashed at the testing stone tablet. 20 stars of spiritual ocean tier immediately. Cries of surprise sounded everywhere. Before this, there was only one freak of 20 stars of spiritual ocean tier, but now there was a second one. This was battle prowess surpassing 11 stars, too shocking. Moreover, this girl was so beautiful. There were many elites on the roll watching in the surroundings, and their eyes couldn't help but shine. If they could marry such a girl, it would truly be a good match. Geniuses like them were destined to advance into the flower blossom tier, and have a lifespan of up to 300 years. But there was no one by their side to spend it with. What a pity. But if they had a similarly powerful partner, it would be different, living and dying together until the end of their lives. Thus, beauties like Lu Yutong, Huang Han, Qi Hualan, and Lin Xiangqin were all extremely popular, far surpassing Zhang Lixian and the others, although they were almost equal in appearance. Lu Yutong bowed to Ling Han, then went to fill in the information. This made everyone cry out in surprise. Why did 3 people bow to Ling Han one after another? Who was this guy? After all 3 of them were qualified to be on the list. Diao Wendy's face twitched. If it wasn't for the fact that he hadn't registered yet, he really wanted to cover his face and run. It's Nyo's turn. Nyo leaped down from Ling Han's body and ran off with a pa-pa-pa sound. Puff, at least half of the people laughed out loud. What kind of joke was this? A little girl of 5 or 6 years old actually dared to join in the fun. Because there was only one day to register, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion also had a basic requirement for the applicants. They had to at least reach the spiritual ocean tier. Why are you here if you haven't reached the Sea of Souls realm? However, she was just a 5 or 6-year-old girl. Not to mention the Sea of Souls realm. Her spirit root had not even awakened yet. Wasn't this a joke? Little girl, this is not a place for you to play. Go back quickly. One of the people in charge of registration said with a smile. He was only being polite because of Ling Han. After all, there were 3 experts on the list who had bowed to Ling Han. Hunyo was very displeased, and with her hands on her hips, she asked, "Why don't you let Nyo play? This is really not a place for you to play." That person broke out in a cold sweat. This kind of little girl was the best at pestering endlessly, and just talking wouldn't do. In the surroundings, everyone laughed incessantly. Hunyo looked like she was carved from jade, and such a little girl was pleasing to the eye. Moreover, the childlike interest she displayed was so fun, making everyone extremely happy. Don't laugh. Hunyo was displeased. She wasn't here to be funny. She threw a punch at the testing stone tablet. Wong wong wong, the characters on the 4th row immediately lit up. 20 stars. Instantly, the whole place was silent. Holy shit. Battle prowess of 20 stars of the spiritual ocean tier. A little girl of 5 or 6 years old. Everyone held their faces with both hands to prevent their jaws from dropping. Was this possible? Nyo, you can still try 2 more times. Ling Han obviously wouldn't be shocked and said with a smile. Hunyo laughed, turned her fist into a claw, and waved at the testing stone tablet. Wong. This time the characters on the 4th row didn't light up, but the characters on the 5th row lit up. 1 2 only 2. Poo pew pew. However, the surrounding people all stuck out their tongues. What did the characters on the 5th row light up mean? Spiritual pedestal tier battle prowess? The little girl's casual grab actually had the battle prowess of 2 stars of spiritual pedestal tier? My god, where did this freak come from? Pass, please come over and fill in your information. There were a total of 8 people, but he was the only one who could still maintain consciousness and speak. The other 7 had long since turned into stone statues. Hunyo wasn't done playing. Her punch and claw actually didn't shatter the stone tablet. Hunyo was very angry, and the consequences were very serious. Bite, she pounced down, opened her small mouth and bared her snow-white teeth at the stone tablet, biting it in one bite. Fuck. Seeing this scene, everyone who was still in a state of shock didn't know what expression to have. Such a little girl with nature-defying battle prowess was too good at pranks. You actually used your mouth to bite a stone, and when fighting enemies in the future you wouldn't also want to bite like this, right? Wong. As Hunyo bit down, the characters on the 5th row lit up one by one. 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Instantly all 20 characters lit up, and then dimmed at the same time, and the characters on the 6th row began to light up. My god. At this moment, everyone felt as if pigs were flying in the sky. This world must have collapsed. How could such an absurd thing happen? Aha, I must be seeing things. But the characters on the 6th row continued to light up. 5 10 15. The whole place was silent, and everyone's eyes were popping out as they stared at the testing stone tablet and Hunyo, who was lying on it in a ridiculous posture, but no one could laugh. 18 19 20. Finally, the testing stone tablet stopped changing, and stopped at the state where the characters on the 6th row were all lit up. Flower blossom tier 20 stars. Everyone's mouths twitched. If they were bitten by the little girl, then even the defense of Flower Blossom tier would be useless. Although the greatest destructive power didn't represent true battle prowess, and you might not be able to bite someone if you were bitten, then even a Flower Blossom tier would cry freak. This wasn't a freak but a monster. Yu Kuan Luen. Yo Xing Lai, Zhu Xianair, Huang Han. Whether it was the elites on the roll or the quasi-elites, they all fell into a completely speechless state at this moment. And the faces of the few old monsters that were keeping watch here also twitched, feeling a faint pain in the balls. Hunyo's destructive power made them all feel wary. Only Ling Han laughed secretly. Hunyo's small mouth could even bite through the power barrier set up by a king-tier demonic beast in the 9th layer of the Flower Blossom tier. So what kind of teeth were those? That's true. Hunyo turned around and smiled sweetly at Ling Han. Chapter 439. Don't listen to this female pervert's nonsense. Ling Han pointed at Yin Hong and said, in the future, don't treat her as a woman, but as a man who reincarnated into the wrong body, possessing the body of a woman. So, if she approaches you, you have to imagine it as a man approaching you, understand? Helian Sun Shui and Hunyo instantly revealed ominous glints. A stinky man wanted to approach them? You're brainwashing, Yin Hong pointed out. As expected of a grandmaster, you're really full of tricks. No wonder so many young girls were deceived by you. Less nonsense, what's that news? Ling Han asked. Yin Hong finally said with a serious expression, the Heaven's Sword sect, the Cloud Phoenix sect, the Absolute Saber sect, the Blue Thunder sect, and the Earth Dragon sect, the 5 great sects have jointly announced that they will establish the Restore Heaven Academy to recruit all the geniuses in the world. Oh. Ling Han was puzzled. These 5 great sects had been passed down since ancient times, and were the only 5 forces that had been passed down since ancient times. Every one of them had a long history, so why would they jointly establish some Restore Heaven Academy now? Did they say why? He asked. The 5 great sects have jointly announced that the world will experience great chaos in the near future, possibly leading to a fault in the entire martial arts world. Thus, the 5 great sects have to select as many outstanding geniuses as possible to nurture. In case a great calamity really does occur, they can also leave behind the seeds of revival, Yin Hong said. This reason is quite lofty, Ling Han mumbled. Grandmaster Ling, are you interested in going? Yin Hong asked. Ling Han thought for a moment, then asked, where is this Restore Heaven Academy? 9 Dragons Mountain. A thought flashed through Ling Han's mind. This 9 Dragons Mountain was in Flying Blossom County, and the Boundless Mountain where Zishuesian had left her message should also be in Flying Blossom County. What a coincidence! Since he was going to the Flying Blossom County, there was no harm in going along the way. After all, the 5 great sects had existed for who knew how many tens of thousands of years, and possessed the most complete martial arts inheritance. Going there to study should be somewhat beneficial. Though Ling Han had obtained a considerable number of secret arts in his last life, how could the power of a single person compare to the accumulation of countless generations? If all the freaks in the world are gathered there, then I'm somewhat looking forward to it, Ling Han said with a smile. I knew you'd be interested. However, not everyone can enter this Restore Heaven Academy. The 5 great sects will first send out notices to some geniuses, allowing them to directly enter the academy. As for the remaining people, they'll have to pass through layers of selection, Yin Hong continued. So it's like that, Ling Han said with a smile. I wonder if anyone has sent me a notice? Yo, Grandmaster Ling, are you jealous? Yin Hong laughed loudly. Let me tell you a piece of unfortunate news. Xinyuan Ziguang has already received the notice, and set off this morning. As for you, there's no sign of movement at all. Ling Han was puzzled and said, in terms of martial arts level, I'm at least not inferior to Xinyuan Ziguang, and in terms of alchemy ability, I'm even an Earth-grade high-level alchemist, so why did they skip over me? He wasn't placing too much importance on this admission quota, but was purely unable to understand. Grandmaster Ling, you think too highly of yourself. Yin Hong shook her head with a smile. The 5 great sects must have long since planned for the establishment of the Restore Heaven Academy, and have long since confirmed a batch of geniuses that can enter the academy, such as Yao Huiyu, Small Saber King, Dong Ling and the others. As for you, how long has it been since you appeared? Indeed, it had only been 3 days since Ling Han defeated Xinyuan Ziguang, and previously Million Treasure City had been sealed off by the 4th Great Formation, so it was impossible for any news to have spread out. Ling Han laughed loudly. He had indeed taken things too for granted. After Yin Hong left, Ling Han could not help but ponder. In the memory stone that Zishuesian left behind, 10,000 years ago, it should have been people from the immortal realm who destroyed the martial arts inheritance of the previous generation. According to the news of later generations, it was the Heaven's Sword sect, and the other 4 great sects who joined hands to turn the tide and drive away those invaders. Ling Han had once been to an ancient battlefield in Rain Country. At least a few hundred Heaven tier elites joined hands to attack a shattering Void tier elite, leaving behind innumerable corpses. Now, that Shattering Void Tier Elite might not have been a Shattering Void Tier Elite but could have been an immortal realm, but his tier was suppressed by this realm. However, Zishuesian said that all of this could be a lie. Now, 10,000 years had passed, and the 5 great sects opened the Restore Heaven Academy, saying that it was extremely possible that the world would fall into chaos. Could it be that the immortal realm was going to descend to the lower realm to invade again? Ma Duobao had once said that he wanted to split open the sky and bring a piece of heaven and earth directly into the immortal realm, so that even the fowls and dogs could ascend to the heavens. Could it be that he had also foreseen this great chaos? Also, Feng Peyun said that he didn't dare to rashly break open the void, and that there would be a great calamity. Could it also be related to the immortal realm? Ling Han's head swelled as he pondered. He knew a lot of things now, but he was more and more confused. Why did the immortal realm want to invade the vast lands? What was there here that was worth the immortal realm coveting? Moreover, if the immortal realm really wanted to destroy the vast lands, would the 5 great sects really be able to stop them? If a few thousand or a few tens of thousands of immortals came, even if they were all suppressed to the Shattering Void tier, would that still not be enough to sweep through them? Ling Han couldn't understand no matter how much he thought about it. If it was really the immortals invading, then what kind of ability did the 5 great sects back then have to expel the foreign races and return their lands? Could it really be, as Zishuesian said, that everything was a lie? He could only find out if he found Zishuesian's message. This trip to the Heaven Mending Academy was something that he had to go. Ling Han had nothing to worry about anyway. Once he made up his mind, he decided to immediately set out. Zhu Erxian and the other 2 girls naturally wouldn't object. After bidding farewell to Yin Hong, they set out on their journey. At first, Ling Han still wanted to meet Kong Zishu. It was very likely that he was a descendant left behind by his disciple, but he was now a heaven-grade alchemist after all. His days were very comfortable, and there was no need for him to worry about him. Moreover, if he said he was the ancestor of the Kong clan, he would definitely be rolled his eyes, right? Forget it, he'd think about it later. The only thing that left Ling Han with regret was that he still didn't know what the treasure that the Thousand Corpse sect was scheming for when they attacked Million Treasure City was. Though it might not be useful to him, when a person's curiosity arose, he would always keep it in mind. The 4 of them set out, heading towards Flying Blossom County. They hired a carriage, and Ling Han naturally reverted to his original appearance. Always wearing a face that was disguised made him uncomfortable, too. After arriving at the Restore Heaven Academy, he could disguise himself as another person. It was extremely likely that Han Lin's identity had already been exposed. After all, the 2 of them had such similar names, and they both cultivated both martial arts and alchemy. Their accomplishments were shockingly high, and it was extremely easy for people to associate them together. Inside the Black Tower, Ling Han played with the Sunset Bow. The Flood Dragon's tendons were indeed tough. Not to mention Flower Blossom tier warriors, even Heaven tier warriors might not be able to use this bow. Because if one didn't cultivate physical arts, drawing the bow would consume a huge amount of origin power, and how would one be able to concentrate the excess origin power on the arrow to deliver a fatal blow? Unlike weapons like swords, sabers, and spears, even if forged with rare metal, they wouldn't weigh more than 50 kilograms. Who didn't have this bit of strength? But to draw the sunset bow, what kind of strength would be needed to lift up a mountain? Phone reading was more refreshing. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.